cleanliness grading system. For many New Yorkers, DSNY's cleanliness score simply does not match up to how residents score their neighborhoods. This bill would bring more transparency into this cleanliness grading system that is critical for accountability, equity, and the ability to allocate resources properly. After that, we have intro number 102, sponsored by Councilmember Yeger, which would require that DSNY notices of violation be accompanied by a photograph of the alleged violation. Finally, we'll be hearing Reso number 174, sponsored by Councilmember Nurse, which calls the New York State Legislature to pass and the governor to sign Senate Bill 237B, also known as the Bigger, Better Bottle Bill, which was introduced in the New York State Senate by Senator Rachel May and would expand New York's over 40-year-old container deposit law to include certain non-carbonated beverages, wine and liquor, and raise the deposit from 5 cents to 10 cents, further incentivizing the removal of recyclable plastic and glass bottles from New York's waste stream. I look forward to the dialogue regarding these bills today. I would also like to thank everyone on my team and the Sanitation Task Force for their work on this legislation and oversight hearing preparations. No additional council members. Today we will begin the hearing with testimony from DSNY, followed by members of the public. I will now turn it over to our committee counsel to administer the oath.
Thank you, Chair Abreu. My name is Morgan Barrett, counsel to the Sanitation and Solid Waste Management Committee of the New York City Council. Our witnesses from the Department of Sanitation will be Commissioner Jessica Tisch, Deputy Commissioner Josh Goodman, and Deputy Commissioner Ryan Marola. Please raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin testimony when ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Abreu and members of the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste. I am Jessica Tisch, Commissioner of the New York City Department of Sanitation, and I am joined today by Joshua Goodman, our Deputy Commissioner for Public Affairs and Customer Experience, and Ryan Marola, our Chief of Staff and Deputy Commissioner of External Affairs. The 10,000 New York strongest are tasked with a Sisyphean undertaking, as you will find in our city, collecting and processing 24 million pounds of residential waste each day, only to find another 24 million pounds waiting for them the day after, and the day after, and the day after. It is a task that is literally without end, and for many decades, the continuous nature of this work gradually developed into a cynicism. A belief that because the trash just keeps coming, that meant solutions to street cleanliness were also impossible. We know today that that is wrong. Choosing to surrender the streets to the black bags of trash, to litter and to litterers, and worst of all, to the rats, is a conscious choice. But instead, waging a trash revolution against filth can also be a choice this administration has made clearly and steadily, but one where we need your help and your support. We are moving forward with a once-in-a-generation change to the way that trash is set out, making tremendous strides in the long-discussed but long-delayed process of getting every single piece of trash off our streets and sidewalks and into secure bins and containers. In October 2022, the Adams administration kicked off this trash revolution by changing set-out times for both residential and commercial waste from 4 p.m., one of the earliest set-out times in the country, to 8 p.m. in April 2023, while also allowing earlier set-out if the material is in a container. This incentive of containerization was paired with major changes to DSNY operations, picking up much more of the trash far earlier, including ending a practice by which up to 1/5 of trash had been left out for a full day. Later that month, DSNY published its Future of Trash report, the first meaningful attempt to study containerization models in New York City and the playbook to get it done. Last August, containerization requirements went into effect for all food businesses in New York City. These businesses, restaurants, delis, bodegas, bars, grocery stores, caterers, produce an outsized amount of the type of trash that attracts rats. That same month, installation of the initial 10-block, 14-school Manhattan Community Board 9 pilot containers began. Last September, commercial containerization requirements extended to chain businesses of any type with 5 or more locations in New York City. These chain businesses tend to produce a large total volume of trash. Starting March 1st, 2024, container requirements went into effect for all businesses of every type in New York City to get their trash off the streets and into a secure bin. This is now a new 311 service request whereby residents can report a business not using bins. Later this fall, when container requirements go into effect for low-density residential buildings, those with 1 to 9 units, approximately 70% of all trash in the city will be under a container requirement. In the spring of 2025, installation of stationary on-street containers will begin in Manhattan Community Board 9 for the first full district containerization pilot serviced by new automated side-loading trucks. This represents a complete overhaul of an essential service that affects every neighborhood, every street, and every building in our city, and it is working, with historic decreases in rat sightings reported concurrently with this effort. This work of rethinking how the trash is stored does not only apply to waste set out for collection, but to public space trash as well. That's why DSNY is excited that New York City street corners now have more than 1,600 litter baskets of the future, which we call the Better Bin. The old green mesh basket had become an icon over decades of use, but it is an icon of a different time. Its widespread presence was based more on inertia than on effectiveness. The old baskets are full of holes from which garbage juice gets out and through which rats get in. The new baskets have no holes for the first 8 inches and much smaller openings throughout. They are harder to misuse, take longer to fill up, and are far easier for our sanitation workers to service. This is in addition to a modular design that means only the least expensive part ever needs to be replaced. We are grateful to our council partners who have purchased several hundred Better Bins over the past 2 fiscal years with their discretionary funds, and we are excited to work with your offices in the next year to keep the Better Bins rolling out. While the Department of Sanitation will never enforce for enforcement's sake, over the last 2 years, we have worked to hold property owners accountable to the very basic requirements that we have in New York City around cleanliness. The legal requirements to maintain a clean sidewalk, to remove litter and debris from the first 18 inches into the street, and to set out waste at the proper time and in the proper receptacles. In 2023, our enforcement of these critical rules around cleanliness was up over 60% compared to the year prior, and we target ongoing enforcement in the highest density parts of the city, doubling down on this council's designation around rat mitigation zones. In addition to enforcing the basic rules of cleanliness outside every property in the city, we have implemented new strategies to combat 2 specific quality of life offenses. The first is our camera enforcement approach to the scourge of illegal dumping. Illegal dumping is defined in the law as the disposal of at least 1 cubic yard of material, approximately 2 large trash bags, from a vehicle. This occurs in areas that dumpers consider to be out of the way, like dead-end streets, underpasses, and perhaps most distressingly, alongside cemeteries. For many years, the Department of Sanitation did not have a meaningful enforcement strategy against the crime of illegal dumping. We just cleaned and cleaned over and over again, and the behavior continued to afflict neighborhoods like East New York, Glendale, and Hunts Point. We have significantly stepped up illegal dumping surveillance in the last 2 years. Last year, we issued more than 300 summonses for illegal dumping, an increase of about 70% over 2022. Each of those summonses start at $4,000, with the cost of cleaning up the mess also passed along to the dumper, and we impound the vehicles involved. The dumpers are on notice that they won't get away with it any longer. The same is true for people who use our streets as free storage for abandoned or derelict vehicles. Under state law, DSNY has jurisdiction for the removal of vehicles identified as derelict, meaning without license plates and with a value of under $1,250, with authority for removal of vehicles outside this category residing with the NYPD. But for the public, this distinction is meaningless. Who knows the value of a car that has taken up space outside their home, sometimes for years without moving? Who needs to know which agency to call? That's why in 2023, DSNY and NYPD launched an Interagency Abandoned Vehicle Task Force to cut through the red tape. A team of 5 NYPD officers were assigned to DSNY to partner with our derelict vehicle operations team so that when we encounter vehicles on the street that do not meet the derelict criteria but qualify as abandoned, we can action them then and there. Thanks to these efforts, in 2023, we increased our derelict vehicle removal by 43% and removed nearly 8,000 vehicles that calendar year. In 2024, we are on pace to dwarf that number. All of you celebrate this work, and most of you ask for more of this work. You speak often about the concerns of your constituents related to the cleanliness of commercial corridors and other dirty conditions in your district. But there are gaps in our enforcement authority. Areas where the Department of Sanitation does not have the tools that we need to do our job. And yet the bills that would help prevent the worst recurrent conditions are not on today's agenda. 2 have yet to be heard. We want to get the job done, and we need your partnership to give airtime at a future hearing to the bills that will actually help us prevent the worst recurrent conditions. That is why we are calling on you to support the passage of the following 3 council bills that will allow us to keep the city cleaner. Intro 97, sponsored by Councilmember Ung, will provide a meaningful escalator in fines for the small number of property owners who repeatedly allow filth to congregate on our streets and sidewalks. Intro 11, sponsored by Councilmember Bottcher, will expand the hours of the day that DSNY may enforce commercial cleanliness rules. And Intro 57, sponsored by Councilmember Osei, will codify and clarify the penalties for failure to containerize waste, one of the most successful cleanliness programs underway in the city. In 2023, over 1,600 locations received 4 or more summonses for dirty area, and nearly 500 were issued 10 or more violations. 3 dozen were issued 50 or more. Imagine being a neighbor to one of those properties. Clearly, the escalating fine structure is not currently steep enough to act as a disincentive to repeat offenders. Enforcement is not about generating revenue. It is about compliance. But under the law today, bad actors can simply look at DSNY enforcement as the cost of doing business. That has to change. And we need your partnership to make that change. Because we all know that cleanliness is a shared responsibility. We urge this committee to add bills that recognize that to upcoming hearings. I will now turn to the bills that are on today's agenda. Intro 3, sponsored by Chair Abreu, would set a new 72-hour window for the removal of abandoned and derelict vehicles. We strongly support the concept of this bill, and as mentioned earlier, have developed new strategies around this issue that are effective. However, we believe that DSNY is not staffed appropriately to action the specific 72-hour window, and there must be considerations given to special circumstances that require vehicles to remain on the street for longer than 72 hours, such as criminal investigations. We would be very happy to and look forward to discussing the bill with you, Chair, and our colleagues at City Hall. The same is true for Intro 52, sponsored by Councilmember Moya, which would replace the city's existing cleanliness scorecard system with a far more extensive one. DSNY has stated publicly over a period of many years that we believe the current scorecard system is flawed and requires significant revisions. We are already in discussions with our council and City Hall colleagues on potential revisions, particularly around the substantial price tag associated with the bill as currently written. I should be clear from this testimony, DSNY is not shy about or embarrassed by our enforcement actions, and so we appreciate the reasons for Intro 102, Councilmember Yeger's bill on pairing summonses with photographs. However, the bill as written and the laws guaranteeing the right to confront evidence would mean DSNY officers will be taken out of the field and placed into oath hearings every single time a violation is heard. This would impede DSNY's ability not only to enforce, but to perform normal supervisory duties in the field. Given that, we cannot support the introduction as written at this time. Fourth, we have a perennial favorite topic, dog waste collection, in Councilmember Menin's Intro 281. The proposal requires dog waste disposal bags be placed on litter baskets. Given the dynamic nature of waste disposal, i.e. that the sanitation worker physically lifts and puts down the basket to empty it, litter baskets are not a practical place to affix a dog waste bag dispenser. However, making dog waste bags more readily available is a goal that we fully support, and we would appreciate the chance to discuss legislation with the council member and our sister agencies. Councilmember Holden's Intro 43 would require that public waste receptacles be emptied at least once per day. DSNY engages in frequent review of the average fullness of corner litter baskets using a variety of data sources, and the department is the appropriate place for the decision to be made on how to most efficiently allocate these resources. We have concerns about the fiscal impact of this bill. Finally, we have the chair's recent proposal, Intro 736. The bill's contraceptive mechanism is within the purview of the Department of Health, and they have submitted written testimony on this topic. We look forward to taking your questions and appreciate the opportunity to discuss these serious issues, both what is on today's agenda and what we believe should be on today's agenda. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Tisch. I would also like to recognize Council Members Ung and Yeger and Council Members Moya and Gennaro on Zoom. I will now begin with my set of questions. Commissioner, Local Law 9 of 2023 required DSNY to install GPS technology on all of its street sweepers. Can you please provide an update on how these installations are going?
Yes, that was done on time. I believe it was supposed to be done by the end of 2023, and it was done on time.
And so all the street sweepers have this technology on them?
Better than that. All of the street sweepers have the GPS on it, and we have a website that anyone can go to. It's publicly available. It has been for several months, since the end of last year, where you can go and check what the street sweeping regulations are and whether or when the last time the street sweeper has passed that location.
That's great news. How does DSNY decide where to dedicate street cleaning resources and what technology is used?
So, as you know, Chair, I am a very data-driven person. I don't like to make decisions in a vacuum. And so over the past 2 years, we have taken enormous strides at the Department of Sanitation to make data-driven operational decisions on all sorts of topics, but among them on the allocation of cleanliness resources. One particular initiative that I think is really making a dent in the Department of Sanitation is what we call Trash Dash. Trash Dash is a ripoff of CompStat. As many of you know, I spent the majority of my career at the NYPD, and so have sat through countless CompStat meetings. And so what we do at the Department of Sanitation, instead of using complaint reports, which is what the NYPD does, we use 311 complaints about cleanliness issues. So abandoned vehicle, dirty area, dirty condition, those types of things that the public calls into 311. And we present them citywide, by borough, by district, week to date, 28-day period, year to date, 2024 versus 2023. And not only do we publish that every Monday, but we have our ComStat meetings where we'll call an entire borough superintendents on up, borough chiefs to headquarters, and they will be grilled on their numbers. Why are your miscollections up? Or better, what have you done to bring your miscollections down? Hey, we see you have 4 dirty condition 311 calls in this same location. What's going on over there? Is there a chronic problem that we need to address? And by democratizing that data through the department, presenting it in a way where it can be used to measure performance, how are we doing now, and measure, using the 311 data, what the community is telling us about cleanliness. I think we are really professionalizing the way that we allocate resources and the way that we manage our resources.
How are daily records, such as street sweeper logs, used to aid in identifying areas with recurring uncleanliness problems?
So now that we have put our GPS technology on the street sweepers, we can do it's nice to be able to show it to the public, but we get very accurate information about which segments we may have missed. Now, I want everyone to keep in mind, all of our routes are designed to be completable, but sometimes our street sweepers, our operators will encounter conditions on the street that are beyond their control. So, for example, double, triple parking on alternate side parking days, vehicles not moving. That not only prevents us from hitting that street, but it backs us up and makes it so that sometimes we can't complete the routes. And so now that we have the street sweepers on our, the GPS technology on our street sweepers, we have much better data about which segments we are missing on which days. And not only are we going to be including that as part of our trash dash, grilling our superintendents and our borough chiefs, why do you keep missing this segment? But also using it to redesign, if needed, some of our routes so that we can make sure that parts of the city that may be at the end of a very difficult route to complete are completed in time.
How can the agency identify areas with recurring problems, and how does it do so?
How can what?
How can the agency identify areas with recurring uncleanliness conditions?
I think I just spoke a lot about Trash Dash, and
Okay.
I actually would invite any of you who want to come to a Trash Dash and observe when your district or your borough is up. It is every Thursday morning, 7:30 a.m. We can tell you when your borough is up, and I think it would be very interesting, I hope refreshing, for the council members to see just how seriously and how focused we are on the data around cleanliness.
Thank you, Commissioner. With respect to alternate side parking, let's talk about street cleanliness as it relates to pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic. Have we reversed some of the trends that we saw during the pandemic, and have we improved from pre-pandemic levels, specifically on missed collections, dirty conditions, and sanitation conditions?
Okay, let me start with the street. The first question was about street sweeping. Street cleaning.
Yeah, my question is, with respect to the pre-pandemic, I'd say before 2020 and in the year 23, what have been the trends on missed collections and dirty conditions and sanitation conditions?
Okay. Missed collections, dirty conditions. So missed collections was an area of obsessive focus for me and for the department over the last year. Our agency, at its core, we are a customer service agency. And a really good way to piss your customer off is to leave trash in front of their house. And so we have been incredibly focused on driving down the number of miscollections. Trash Dash has been extremely helpful to that end because all of a sudden there is full transparency in the data. Our superintendents and our chiefs and everyone in management can see exactly where the miscollections were on a day-by-day, week-by-week basis. We can spot patterns and trends, and this is a big topic of conversation at our Trash Dash meeting. On our most recent Trash Dash report, our miscollections week to date, so if we're comparing calendar year 2024 to calendar year 2023, this week or last week, down 50%. And it just goes to show that when you focus on the right things, you have good data behind them and a strategy designed based on that data, you can make real progress. And miscollections is definitely an area where we have really great progress. And I just want to say, for like miscollections of trash, it's not only down 50% week to date, it's down 50% for the 28-day period and 43% year to date. So this is like definitely not just like a 1 week sampling of data that I am looking about. Dirty conditions in this city, I would say, are down since the pandemic, when there was absolutely no street cleaning going on, or like, if any, virtually no street cleaning going on at the Department of Sanitation. And now we have a number of initiatives designed specifically to address dirty conditions. So among them are targeted neighborhood task force. There are what we call no man's lands, historically no man's lands, city-owned property that was the jurisdiction of no one, no agency to clean historically. Mayor Adams made a historic investment in creating this targeted neighborhood task force inside the Department of Sanitation, and we have about 100 sanitation workers every day that spend their times cleaning those historically forgotten parts of the city. They're certainly in every borough, in virtually every neighborhood in the city. Underpasses, overpasses, greenways, side roads next to highways. These are the parts of the city that have chronically been very, very dirty, and now they are addressed with regular service.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would also like to recognize Council Members Palladino and Banks who have joined us. Can you speak to the number of tonnage of dirt collected by street sweepers in 2023? And can you compare that to what it was pre-pandemic?
So the street sweepers, I don't have the tonnage, but we can get that to you, I assume, very easily. I will tell you, we have significant problems with our street sweeping that think that there is a way to correct. But among those problems is during the pandemic, people got used to not moving their cars. During the pandemic, the street sweeping was cut in half because of budgetary issues. And so people didn't have to move their cars. And one trend we are definitely seeing post-pandemic is that people are still not moving their cars for alternate side parking. And it's kind of tragic because the street sweepers are far and away the best street cleaning tool that we have in our arsenal. Every day on a single shift, a mechanical broom will take 1,500 pounds of litter off of New York's streets. If everyone moved their car for alternate side parking, those curb lines would be gleaming. In my opinion, we need to change the way that we enforce the rules around alternate side parking. And if you look at what the MTA has done with the bus lanes, where they have now automated ticketing systems that enforce bus lanes, if we put these automated ticketing systems on our street sweepers, people would move their car, because the manual enforcement of alternate side parking, yes, of course, is important, but there is no way to scale that to meet the actual need or to correct the level of misbehavior that we see. So this is one where there is a very obvious, very straightforward strategy that we can use. We unfortunately do need a change in the state's VTL law, which I understand the state is contemplating this session.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to ask another set of questions under litter basket services general category, and then after that, I'll turn it over to some of my colleagues to ask their questions. Don't want to take advantage of their precious time for joining us. Though litter basket service funding has been restored, is it true that litter basket service for park perimeters, greenways, bridges, and other pedestrian areas has not? Yes.
We have been running a very high level of litter basket service funded both by this council and by the mayor, and I am very grateful to the mayor that litter basket service that had previously been contemplated to be part of a PEG was restored. One piece of that litter basket service that was not restored was the supplemental cleaning of the litter baskets that the Department of Sanitation was providing for litter baskets run or maintained by other agencies. Among them, the Parks Department and the Department of Transportation. So parks, these litter baskets on park perimeters, and for the DOT, the litter baskets on bridges, as an example, on the Brooklyn Bridge. And so we had some extra funding to commit person power to provide supplemental emptying of baskets that we don't put out and maintain. And that is the one piece that is yet to be restored.
How has or how does DSNY anticipate the elimination of these services will impact street cleanliness? And are there any mitigation plans in place to ensure continued cleanliness?
So for the baskets that are within our jurisdiction, the ones that the Department of Sanitation puts out, there have been no pegs and no cuts, or those pegs and cuts have been fully restored. And I feel good, very good, about the level of basket service that we are running now citywide. Our litter basket complaints to 311 last year were way down. They've been down way below pandemic levels since the council and the mayor worked together at the beginning of this administration to significantly increase the resources behind litter basket service.
Is it fair to say that because litter basket services are not at the park perimeters, greenways, or bridges, that these areas would probably be less clean?
Yes, if that will mean less service to litter baskets around park perimeters and on bridges. And so yes, it is more likely that you could see overflowing litter baskets in those areas. That follows logically.
Are there any plans to establish funding for these litter basket services? I mean, you spoke to it briefly, right?
You know, as the mayor described, I think very clearly, the city was in a very challenging budgetary moment, and he is a big proponent and champion of cleanliness, calls me all the time about it. And so when we are in a budgetary position to be able to make additional investments in cleanliness, I have every confidence that it is high on the mayor's priority list.
Yeah, I think the council maintains that the resources are available, but they'll be questions that we'll have for OMB later this month with our joint hearing with Finance for the executive budget hearings. Does DSNY have like an ideal number when thinking about the number of litter baskets that would be needed to keep the city clean? Is it, I know right now it's 23,000, but is it 30,000? Is it 40? I mean, what is the ideal number? And you know, we get a lot of concern. I get a lot of complaints in my district saying, you know, we need a litter basket here and there. And look, the department has been responsive. But just question if there's an ideal number.
So I think I've said this to you before, I try not to like let my mind go to the ideal world because it'll make me crazy. I'd love a litter basket on every corner of the city, but like that would cost a crazy fortune and would be an investment that I think, in my opinion, doesn't make sense. For the past 2 years, we have been at a litter basket, we've been steady at about 23,000 baskets. We've run what I think is, or what is objectively a much higher level of litter basket service than we did during the pandemic. We're running the highest level of litter basket service, frankly, in the past 20 years. And I am very comfortable with the level, with both the number of litter baskets that we have and the level of service that we have, like living in reality. In general, what we look for when we assess locations for litter baskets is we want a high trafficked part of the city. We want it not to be mid-block. We want them to be on the corner. And we want them to be in locations where people who are using the streets or who would use the litter baskets would use them for walking trash as opposed to commercial trash or residential trash. In the past, we've had to take litter baskets off of corners where they are chronically misused for dumping of commercial trash. And in that way, a business or that commercial trash basically blows it for everyone who would be using that litter basket on the street corner. We're thinking about ways that we can integrate technology to use cameras for surveillance, but in practice now, those are our thoughts on how we assess locations for litter basket service.
Thank you, Commissioner. Some of the data reviewed by the committee illustrates that some neighborhoods like Flushing have relatively lower litter baskets when adjusting for population as compared to Manhattan neighborhoods, for example. Now, I'm not advocating for Manhattan to have less litter baskets. I'm advocating for neighborhoods where when you adjust for population, they don't have the same number of litter baskets. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, we are very focused on equity in litter basket placement. Nowhere was that clearer than when we were contemplating during, the PEGs several months ago. We were contemplating having to take off 40% of all litter baskets citywide. So if there are locations in the city or commercial corridors in particular in the city where you feel like there should be more litter baskets, we are obviously always open to that, but we have to assess it on a case-by-case basis.
How does DSNY decide placements for the new better bins?
So two different ways. One, we've tried to spread the love across every borough. Second, a number of council members have used their discretionary funds to purchase litter baskets. Which one was my star? Councilmember Salam is our star in this regard. He purchased 123 better bins that are sparkling in his district. And I encourage, with the use of discretionary funds, if you want significantly more better bins, that seems like a very good place to put those resources. And if you have any question about that, take a walk around Councilmember Salam's district and check them out. But we bought approximately so far about 2,000 of them. We'll do another big order at the beginning of the next fiscal year on July 1st. That order is prepped and ready to go. And we're always happy to supplement those orders with discretionary funds provided by the council.
Do you think that better bins something that should be continue to be paid for in this fashion, or does the city have a vision to, have these better bins be purchased for as part of their capital plan or the capital budget? Sorry.
Unfortunately, tragically, the way the capital rules are written, these baskets are not capitally eligible. I have fought that fight and lost. And I understand why I lost. They're just, as the capital rules are written, the litter baskets are explicitly excluded.
All right, something to look into. So I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Carr, and then followed by Julie Menin.
Thank you so much, Chair, for this hearing. Commissioner, always great to see you. I just want to start by thanking you and your team, both with you and in your office, and the folks at Borough Operations as well. Chief Hancock and Superintendent Mike Parada are great, and everyone who works with them. So understandably, as you can imagine, I'm going to start with my passion, curbside e-waste. This is something that's been funded in the last several budgets. It's a program that's important to Staten Islanders because we do not really benefit from the e-cycle program, which services buildings with 10 units or more. And so I was wondering, what is the agency's observations with respect to 311 data and street cleanliness since the program was suspended last year? And in particular, has there been any monitoring of drop-offs at the Muldoon Avenue site since the program was suspended in terms of an increase perhaps in drop-offs by folks?
I'm embarrassed to tell you, I don't have the 311 data about e-waste specifically, and I should have anticipated this question, so I am sorry. We will get that to you today after this hearing. As you know, and as I just explained, we had to take some very painful cuts and make some very difficult choices given the realities of what is going on with the city's budget. And unfortunately, that e-waste program, which we love, and certainly our Staten Island team that administered it so well really loved, was one of them.
I appreciate that, and I look forward to hearing the follow-up. I think it's a great program for Staten Island. I wish that it had been able to expand, but for the COVID cuts to other boroughs so that other 1, 2, 3 family home communities could benefit from it as well.
And the great thing about that program is, we were using that, we were doing e-waste, but we were also saying to residents, if you have textiles, and so we were able, with the same amount of resources, to really make more of it than just e-waste, which on its own is great, but we were really able to put those resources to great use.
Right. And that was a great addition at the start of your tenure, and hopefully we can ultimately come to a way to fund it in this year's budget and get to that point. I want to turn to lot cleaning and TNT. So much of our street cleanliness issues arise from lots that are neglected, whether they're city-owned or privately owned. Could you tell us the status of these programs in the budget? And
so it's two different answers. So as part of the pegs taken, the lot cleaning and TNT were eliminated budget-wise, what's reflected on paper. The fact of the matter is that at the department, we have lots of sanitation workers. We have a historically high head count. And so until some of those sanitation workers attrit out, we have the staffing to run a lot of the cleaning services that on paper were pegged and were cut. So are we cleaning the TNT locations every day? Yes. Are we cleaning some lots? Yes. Although, because the lot cleaning was a single unit, we had to disband that unit. But we do have, I would say, a good amount of TNT cleaning and cleaning of lots that happens in New York City. But if those cuts are not restored in an upcoming budget, as our attrition goes up, that level of cleaning service will go down.
Okay, and are you seeing a steady number of 311 requests or complaints regarding vacant lots and city lots? Do you feel like this is something that the constituencies represent are demanding?
There is definitely an appetite in New York City among New Yorkers to have lots cleaned. Now, lots that most of these lots are privately owned, and technically it should be, and it is, the responsibility of the property owner to clean them. When we took the lot cleaning peg, what we said to other city agencies is, for lots that you own, you are now responsible for cleaning them. But the hope is that if and when the budget allows, that these cuts would be considered for restoration.
I always understood that for private lots, sanitation was able to charge the owner, and it was added to the property tax bill. Is that
That's
accurate?
exactly right.
Yeah. So listen, I think it's a tremendously important program. So many of the sources of litter come from these neglected lots, just like with the bad actors in other parts of the city. So I'm with you 100% in trying to restore these programs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
I would like to associate with Councilmember Carr's comments. I'd also like to recognize Councilmembers Palladino, Salamanca, and Brewer for joining us. Julie Menin.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you, Commissioner, for your testimony today, and I'm happy to see that you agree with the policy reasons behind the bill that I've introduced. I know you mentioned that there's some concerns. So, as I understand it, there are 23,000 litter baskets throughout the city of New York. What my bill would do is require DSNY to put dog waste bags on those litter baskets. You testified that you had concerns about DSNY workers picking up the baskets. My understanding, though, is that some of the baskets, the workers are picking up the interior only. Can you identify what percentage of baskets are interior only that they're picking up?
Small percent. Hopefully it will grow as a percentage as we get the new litter baskets in, because the new litter baskets are 2 pieces. What I recommend, as I mentioned, I agree fully with the spirit of the bill. I think in New York City we have a huge amount of street furniture that doesn't move. And even the litter baskets, they move, both pieces of them for parades or big events, or they move a lot, and people let us know when they move. And so my recommendation for this bill is to put it on other street furniture or infrastructure on our streets that don't move. I mean, we have light poles, we have street poles, we have benches. I think that picking a permanent structure that is not movable, i.e. one that is capitally eligible, is the right way to achieve the goal that we share.
Okay, I look forward to discussing that with you. I have a couple other questions on dog waste. How many 311 complaints last year were related to dog waste?
Hold on. Do you have the number here, Ryan? 2,306 in the calendar year.
And is there a breakdown by borough?
We can get you a breakdown by borough.
Okay. And another part of my bill requires a public health campaign around dog waste, really talking about the health hazards associated with dog waste. Any comments on that?
Our Deputy Commissioner Josh Goodman has some information on it.
Thanks so much, Councilmember. DEP is running one now, and they have an ongoing public health campaign about the dangers of dog waste.
And where is that being run?
I couldn't speak to that, but I saw the materials.
I would just tell you from the comments we've received from constituents, people are not aware of that campaign. It's just not something that's widely accessible or understood. We need to do something,
we will get that
I think,
feedback back to
much
them.
bigger and bolder in terms of a public health campaign. In terms of enforcement, my understanding is that city data shows that 18 tickets were issued in 2022 for failure to pick up canine waste. That's down from 72 tickets issued for violations in 2019. Any sense why, and do you have data for 2023 to date?
Yes, so this is a very challenging issue to enforce against. You know, it's a crime that has to be observed in the act for a ticket to be written. We can walk up to an empty store and leave something about an improper set out of trash. We cannot walk up to a pile of dog waste and leave a ticket. And so unfortunately, it's a very resource-intensive enforcement operation. The enforcement did go up between 22 and 23, although, you know, we're talking about single-digit amounts. It's not where it should be. And that's, I think, why we're most inclined to strongly agree with you that this is a cultural and education campaign is going to be more effective than the very heavy resource-intensive attempts to enforce against it.
Great, thank you very much.
Councilmember Yeger.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
Like many members, I'm going to turn straight to my bill and leave off some of the other interesting topics, although I'm very excited to continue talking about dog poop. But I do want to talk about Introduction 102. And just a very brief history, this is the 6th time this bill has been introduced since 2009 in every session of the council by 3 of my predecessors, once by me, and now a second time by me. So this bill has had ample opportunity by the Sanitation Department, by your predecessors, to be looked at, investigated, studied, thought about, in times when the technology was much different, as you know, and you have probably more skills on tech than any other commissioner in the city, so you know this. In 2009, asking enforcement agents to take a picture and attaching it to a summons is probably, looking back, a much more complicated and difficult task than the one we're asking today. Today, it's so simple, and we know it's simple because we do it all the time. There are countless types of summonses that come with photographs attached, including your own enforcement actions come with photographs attached, and you're here today advocating for another type of enforcement action to have photographs attached. So photographs attached are obviously a good concept, right? Because it gives certainty to the charge and tends to diminish the chances of perjury. Let's be frank. And I think we do know that from time to time, and I'm not going to say many or most, there are from time to time summonses that are written that are lies, just not truthful. And the percentage of those summonses that are able to be dismissed with evidence rebutting the prima facie that's written on the summons is minuscule, because what are the chances that a guy has a camera on his house catching the sanitation guy at the exact moment that he writes the summons for something that doesn't exist? I happen to have a couple of cases like that, as Deputy Commissioner knows, but it's minuscule. So this is a good tool to keep the agents honest. So your objection, as I understand it, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm just going to use yours, it is tied to the citizens' opportunity to challenge the summons.
No, I agree with you 100%. I love the idea of photo evidence. I am all for it. When I ran Do It, I put the photo attachments on 311 complaints. Concept-wise, I am all in. And what I am like very certain the photos will show is what a fantastic job our sanitation supervisors and our sanitation enforcement agents do in their work and how thoughtful they are about it. My concern with the bill as written is that when you have photo evidence that goes to oath, all of a sudden the sanitation enforcement agent and the sanitation supervisor can't do their job but have to go to oath, because as I am told by oath, and I'm happy to talk with you and oath and the law department together, what I am told by oath is every person has a right to confront evidence against them. And so when you have a photo taken by a person, the person has to appear at the oath hearing. That would be an outrageous drain on our enforcement resources, one that I can't and will not support, and one that I think that that this council cannot or should not pursue. Because right now, everyone here calls us all the time about dirty conditions. And the vast majority of those cases, those dirty conditions are on sidewalks that are the responsibility of the property owner to clean. And so what we do is we go and we issue a ticket. And if all of a sudden our ticket writing ability is halved or more than halved, that means that there are going to be more dirty conditions in the city.
So let me offer up my own rebuttal, if I may. One of the differences of this bill from the 5 times that it was introduced in the past is the last several words of the first paragraph say that the photo shall, quote, be a rebuttable evidence of the facts contained therein. That language was never included in previous versions of the bill. When oath tells you that every summons with a photo must have a person show up, it's just not true. It's only those, first of all, oath is not always factual. Oath is also a kangaroo court. Oath doesn't, if a citizen shows up in oath, the burden immediately shifts to the citizen, right or wrong, or whether the statute backs up that shifting of the burden. The citizen has to prove that this didn't happen. What I suggest is that if a summons is accompanied by a photo, the number of challenged Department of Sanitation summonses will reduce tremendously, because when the guy gets the summons in the mail or on the door and it's got a picture, usually it's going to be in the mail, and it's got a picture attached and it shows the schmutz that they got the ticket for, they're not going to show up, and they're just going to say, well, I did what I did, or I didn't catch it in time, or I wasn't out there at 8:05, and here's my $50, have a great day, it's the cost of living in New York. So the number of times that an agent is challenged on their ticket may increase, but the number, relative to the number of photos that are taken, but the overall number of challenged summonses are going to decrease tremendously, because people are going to say, you got me. How many, and just as an addition to that, how many people actually challenge a red light ticket? They don't, because they can't, because the picture's there.
So I don't know how many people challenge a red light ticket, but I take and understand your points. And I want you to keep in mind that in concept, in principle, I think I'm the first sanitation commissioner to absolutely wholeheartedly agree that photo evidence makes sense from a technology perspective. It's a slam dunk. It's like obvious how to do it. We know how to do it. I am very concerned, however, about the impacts that this would have to the number of enforcement agents and the number of supervisors that we could have out on the street each day. That is a very real thing, but what I would like to continue to talk to you and talk to Oath and talk to the law department about it, because my hope is that there is a way that we could make progress without triggering the problems that I am concerned about.
So I'm happy to do that. And I will say I have to turn this back over to the chair, because there are other members who do have questions. But I will just say that in the 5 versions of the bill before you became commissioner, there had never been a commissioner taking a position at all. It's never come to a hearing. It's only the last 2, mine this session and mine the last session, that's had the hearing. I appreciate that you've studied the bill and are willing to talk to us about it. But I do think today, 2024, with tech being so easy to achieve, we got to figure out a way to do it.
Here's the thing. My concern is not a tech concern.
I get that.
I think that if this had a hearing a few years ago, people would have said, oh, tech. I am explicit. This is not a tech challenge. The technology is a home run. It's a slam dunk. I'm concerned about the implications for our enforcement, which is very important to street cleanliness. But let's talk offline with our other agency partners and see if there's a way to make it work.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I was disappointed to learn that no one from the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene would be available to join us for this conversation on street cleanliness. DOHMH is directly tasked with controlling our rat population, and a conversation about street cleanliness without a conversation about rats isn't much of a conversation at all. I also know, or at least strongly hope, that DOHMH and DSNY work very closely, given the critical role that sanitation also must play in reducing the rat population, which we're seeing already lots of progress with containers. So I'm going to go ahead and ask some questions. Maybe someone at the table will have some insight. According to the mayor's management report, DOHMH conducted 23% fewer pest control inspections in the first 4 months of FY 2024 compared to the same time period the year before, and that this decrease can be attributed to staffing shortages. The mayor's management report also states that during this same time period, the first 4 months of FY 2024, there was a nearly 3% increase in properties which failed the initial pest control inspection, indicating that as time has gone on, we're seeing a higher level of infestation. The report adds that in addition to high failure rates, complaints have also been high in FY 2024. What I'm getting at here is that the standard mitigation strategies seem to not be working overall. There have been pockets of success, however, in mitigation zones, and particularly in the containerization pilot in my district, we've seen a decrease in rat sightings and have gotten positive feedback from constituents. Can you talk about those metrics in Hamilton Heights containerization pilot and discuss what, if any, coordination with DOHMH, DSNY has had in achieving these numbers?
Sure. When I started this job, one of the things that I was very interested in doing, the big opportunity, was to fundamentally rethink how we do big things that matter to lots of people. And among them, how we fight rats. That was key. For too long in this city, our rat mitigation strategy has been extermination. And what we have tried to do by programmatically, systematically, citywide, taking measures to rid the food source, deny the rats their food source, it's working. Putting all the commercial trash in containers, that's 20 million pounds a day, that's working. The rat numbers are going down. Since we started our container interventions last April, our monthly rat numbers have been down for 13 months, or for 12 of the past 13 months. That doesn't happen. In New York City, rat numbers only go one way, and that's up. And so the over 1 year's worth of data that we have now, since our intervention strategies on the trash began in earnest, they are showing really positive results. In Hamilton Heights, where we're now not just going after commercial trash, but also the residential trash, the rat numbers are leading the city in terms of their decreases. I want you all to know, and I want New Yorkers to know, that in denying the rats the food source, we have what I think is a winning strategy to bring down the rat numbers in New York City. I also want to say, I don't know why my colleagues at the Department of Health and the rat czar are not present at this hearing, given that your bill on rat contraception is on the agenda. But I want to say that generally, I am the type that embraces new, innovative ways of thinking about old problems. The rats are an old problem. Clearly, we need innovative strategies to address it. The containerization thing, which you have all helped champion with us, is one of them. Sounds to me, not an expert on rat contraception, that may be another one, but I do defer to my colleagues in the Department of Health and the rat czar, who unfortunately aren't present today.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I got to say that I wouldn't be having this conversation about rat contraceptives if we didn't containerize first. We have seen in past experiments that rats have eaten trash. So in past experiments, there have been the contraceptive pellet form the liquid form that's been introduced, like in Bryant Park. But what we saw there was that the rats was actually eating the trash. So now, if we remove trash and make sure it's containerized, it increases the likelihood that rats are actually going to eat the pellet form when there are no alternative nutrition. So I have to say that we are only having this conversation because containerization is coming to New York City. Without containerization, it would be very difficult to implement a rat contraceptive program. I would like to now turn it over to Public Advocate Jamani Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to give my opening statement a little after the opening, so I appreciate that. My name is Jamani Williams, Public Advocate for the City of New York. Thank you, Chair Abreu, and the members of the Committee on Sanitation and Solid Waste Management for holding this hearing and for allowing me to share my statement. Thank you, Commissioner Tisch and the New York City Department of Sanitation team for being here. My office consistently receives quality of life complaints about overwhelming corner garbage cans and the rats that accompany the overflowing garbage. This is a health and safety concern for New Yorkers. Mayor Adams has been clear that improving New York City sanitation is a priority of his administration by appointing a rat zone and by releasing targeted containerization policies. These concentrated efforts have been effective, as shown by 301 calls for rats decreasing in containerized zones. And we must continue to implement these containerization policies. Containerization is a standard that all modern cities rely on, and New York City should be moving as quickly as possible towards universal containerization. However, we must make sure that containerization is deployed equitably. Currently, there are swaths of a neighborhood in New York City without or with limited access to street garbage cans. During the transition to containerization, DSNY must make sure that low-income or more suburban residents are included in their plans. The city must also invest in alternative waste collection processes. Compost processes have had their services reduced due to budget cuts. These nonprofits utilize environmentally friendly methods to reduce waste, and the city should be encouraging and supporting these efforts. New York City has seen long since a difference in street cleanings and garbage infrastructure, and these nonprofits have helped to close the gap in traditionally underserved neighborhoods where the majority of residents are people of more color. If the mayor's office is serious about reducing the city's rodent population, then the Office of Management and Budget must restore funding to nonprofit organizations that target food waste through composting and other means. The administration's goals are reducing the rat population and improving street cleanliness across the city. The budget must reflect this. We must reverse all cuts in sanitation management, as well as invest in modern technologies and processes to better manage street waste. Additionally, Disney should expedite the hiring of roles that were previously impacted by the hiring freeze. And also, I want to have mentioned that I have often seen what appears to be unequitable cleaning in communities, particularly communities of more color and low-income communities. So I want to make sure that's a priority, that things are cleaned and look better. I think everybody wants clean streets and clean sidewalks. So thank you very much for being here, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Public Advocate. Councilmember Brewer?
Thank you very much. I listened to your wonderful remarks, Commissioner, and they were excellent. I know you prepare hard, and I appreciate it. I also like Brian Quinn, who's a wonderful superintendent, and of course, Ryan Marola is a rock star. So my questions are, if we're talking about customer satisfaction, everybody complains about not having enough litter baskets. That's the customer satisfaction. I think basically they want to come from their park and they want to put the dog poop in the basket. I got it. And I know that there's an issue if you overdo the household. That's an issue that we should remove the baskets as a result. Is there some way that we can address this so that they can have their litter baskets? And we need to do some kind of, I know they shouldn't put their household in there, but not having a litter basket makes them crazy, and they're already generally upset.
Yeah, actually, the household trash isn't the real problem with the corner litter baskets, because people get free household collection. It's the commercial trash that is the problem with the
Do they have to pay? No.
corner litter baskets, because they have to pay. And what I would say to that is there are ways, I think, that we can pilot the use of surveillance technology, so that there are consequences for people who misuse the litter baskets. I do have something in the works now that is very much a pilot. I don't want to promise anything as like a winning strategy until I have a little more information, but it's definitely something that I understand has always been in your mind and is on our minds too.
Thank you. That would help customer satisfaction.
Wait till you see this.
Customer satisfaction. Number two, you mentioned that wonderful state legislation that would have to pass in order to get the misbehaving drivers to do alternate side of the street parking. Is that something that you have the budget for if it was to pass in Albany? et cetera? Because to me, that's a big issue. You just see, at least in Manhattan, tons of people not moving their cars.
So, as you know, we don't enforce for the sake of enforcement, and we don't enforce for the sake of revenue.
No, I'm with you on that.
However, I think with something like this, because it certainly, at first, would be revenue generating, meaning if we get this authorization, we will issue a lot of violations in the beginning time period, and then suddenly people will get the point and move their cars. But anyway, because it would be revenue generating, at least at first, I don't anticipate a problem on the budget side procuring the technology.
Okay. Finally, the issue of the containers and the business, what's happening, and you know this as well as I do, they're buying, I'm making this up, 2 containers, and it's really not enough. So
It makes me crazy.
So they have last night, I walked a long way up to Columbia about 1 o'clock in the morning to see what was going on. And literally, almost all of the small stores had 2 containers and then overflowing.
Yeah.
So is that a situation where they would get a ticket because
yeah.
they need a third?
So
How does that work?
You get the same violation for that as you would for not having containers at all. Like, at this point, it's been in place long enough. Like, appreciating the effort isn't good enough anymore. You got to have enough containers to containerize all your trash, and the lids have to seal. And if those very basic things aren't met, you get a violation.
Okay.
And you should.
Okay. And then the school organics, having started that myself years ago, the issue there is, I assume it's working in terms of fewer rats and less complaints, but is it working in terms of cleaner organics?
We have contracts in place that for all of the organic material that we collect before it gets processed. We have ways of cleaning it. Some of it is human cleaning of it, literally picking things out. Some of it is more mechanized cleaning of it. But we have contracts and processes in place for all of our organic material to take out the contamination before it gets processed. And that includes contamination from the schools.
So they've been, whatever reason, a bigger challenge than others in the past.
Yeah, the school organics, however, is, I think, like one of the greatest investments we could possibly make in organics in New York City, because what it's doing is it's training the next generation of New Yorkers to separate out their food scraps. They bring it home to their parents. And I just think it's a great way forward.
One more question, if you don't mind. The kids hate the food, but they're learning how to do the organics. The oath, when I complain to oath, are you collecting the funding that is, that people are supposed to pay for their infractions? They say, talk to the agencies, not my problem. So oath says to us, we don't have anything to do. We sit there, we adjudicate. We don't know whether or not the money is collected. So is that something that you pay attention to? In other words, if I get a fine, if I don't pay my fee, is that something that you keep track of? Who's supposed to keep track of that?
No, my understanding is that is the Department of Finance that keeps track of it, but the agencies certainly do not.
Okay, that would be very helpful to understand. And then just the sanitation, big Union Square, you're going to return those days that people pray for. Literally, they go to church and say, God, pray for the day when you can go to Union Square and bring my batteries and my recycling. They wait for years for those days. They're like their favorite day of the year.
Yeah,
Are you going to do them again?
As part of the,
PEG, the PEG.
Twice a year? Yeah, as part of the PEGs, we used to do 2 per borough per year. Now it's down to 1 per borough per year.
Because I understood they were completely cut. Is that not correct?
No, that's not the case. They went from 2 to 1.
Okay, and you'll let us know when the next ones are in
For
Manhattan?
sure.
People wait for them their entire life.
Well, the entire year.
No, their entire life. They just want it now. Thank you.
We do love those events. We want it to go back to we want it to go back to 2 if we can. Councilmember Palladino.
Wow. Oh God, that's pretty funny, but it's true. People make it sound like, oh my God, I can't wait for this day to happen. And it's only about recycling electronics or whatever. So yes, I understand that. Also, I'm really want to talk to you about the highway cleanup. That's really the only issue I'm happy to say that I have in my district. We're pretty fortunate, and I want to thank you so very much, because each and every time I come to this hearing, you guys are so prepared, overly prepared, and it's absolutely, everybody takes something away from these hearings. So thank you very, very much. And I too agree with you. I have a tendency to want to try to live in an ideal world, but the reality just does not exist. I think many of these problems can be solved if people just took personal responsibility for picking up after their dogs and silly things like that. When people stop caring, everything gets dirty, and it gets dirty rapidly. You have since been cut, your manpower has been cut, your budget has been cut, and it's very difficult. Also feel that tickets are necessary, and I mean big dollar tickets are necessary. I am not one for draining small businesses. However, when you see what they put out on the curb, and you do, it's absolutely horrendous, and something needs to be done about that. And I think hitting these small business owners in their pocketbook at this time, we talk about rats, we talk about just not caring. I mean, how much are you guys supposed to do if people cannot do their part? This is a two-way street, and everybody forgets it, okay? And I don't think we'd have half the problems we had if people just gave a darn about where they lived and took care of their personal business 18 inches out, which they no longer do. So that's another story. We'll go into that on private, but you already know it. Highway cleaning for my district is very big. When you're getting on the Cross Island, when you're getting on the Clearview, when you're getting on the Whitestone Expressway, the Van Wyck Expressway, you just drive in, the weeds are literally 2 feet high. How does it work? And how often, I know if you cut it down real close.
Are you talking about the weeds?
Yeah, I'm talking about this.
I'm going to disappoint you then.
Yeah.
So, for highway cleaning, as you know, we just got a year ago, the mayor put the sanitation department in charge of cleaning the litter on the highways. They look much better. I don't know if you remember what they looked like before, but they look much better. But we don't do the weeds and the grass, and that was incredibly explicit and specific, and I don't really understand the reasons behind it, but I know a lot of people care very deeply about that. So for that, you have to ask the Department of Transportation.
Right, and I did that. And by the way, the sanitation is cleaned up, but I was just hoping that in one way or another, we could try to figure this out, because DOT too, being cut the way they're cut, they don't have the manpower to do what they're supposed to do either. So in the meantime, we have the sides of just the highways that are, otherwise my district is, and I thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I'd like to recognize Councilmember Vernikov. Councilmember Schwang, you're next.
It's working. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, and also our Deputy Commissioner, Ryan, and also all the sanitation workers. You guys really put a lot of energy in my 8th Avenue area. But still, I'm thinking, is any task force, like kind of model you guys had in the other district, has similar situation as mine? The illegal vendors fully packed the sidewalk. Like I see you guys did a very good job in some other area. Is that able to bring that model to my area also?
Member, thank you for the question. I'm very happy to go back to my colleagues in City Hall and partner agencies, because the city, under this mayor, has stood up a number of task force that involve many agencies to try and address intractable problems. So that's something that I'll have a conversation first with my colleagues at City Legend IGA, and then we'll talk to groups like Community Link that go in and do that. We do it with them too, to try and bring DSNY, DOT, and other agencies to do a big blitz on many issues, because we're with you on 8th Avenue for vending enforcement, and we see as well the traffic problems. We see that it makes it easier easier at times for there to be more vending or other, other issues that need to be controlled on the street that go outside of our scope. So I'm very happy to do that right after this.
Okay, and also I have another question. We talk about rats all the time. We also have fly rats. We have pigeons. A lot of time because my district, all the trains, the subway station is above the ground. And also sometimes on top of the road, there's a lot of pigeons live there. Is anything you guys able to do, or it's belong to MTA? Is there anything you guys to do to deal with the issue? Because the pigeons everywhere, and there are drops everywhere. If you park in a car under the train track, my constituent take a picture, said 5 minutes, my car covered by drops.
Ryan got it personally 2 weeks ago when I was with him.
So it belongs to MTA, or it's sanitation, it's DOH, I don't know which department I should go.
And I laughed and took a picture. Sorry. That is not, unfortunately, part of the jurisdiction of the sanitation department, but we can help identify which agency would be best to address the concern.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Salamanca.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioner. Again, want to reiterate, really appreciate the relationship that my office has with your agency, and I just want to say thank you with that. I just want to touch on two bills here. I want to start with my colleague here, Councilmember Yeger, Intro 102. I really like this bill, Councilmember. I actually submitted this bill, and I was told that another one of my colleagues had it. I just want to ask a few questions about this argument here. I've experienced where I've received a violation between that 8 and 9 o'clock period. I feel like the language when we got that violation was just very basic, a wrapper, a piece of plastic that they found. And so my question is, when someone challenges it, right? Because when you challenge it, it goes to oath. Does that enforcement officer has to appear at oath automatically? So how does oath determine if there was actually a piece of wrapper in front of someone's home?
I am not sure how they do that, but I get my oath dismissal report every month, and a lot of them are dismissed.
So if currently at the moment there is no picture, there is no proof other than the enforcement officer saying, I physically saw it, and that enforcement officer is not required to go to oath, why would enforcement officer be required to go to oath if we do implement this bill and there's actual picture showing that there is garbage in front of someone's home?
So what I am told is, and I'm not a lawyer in practice, but I did go to law school and pass the bar. So you weren't here for my conversation, I think, with Councilmember Yeger, but I support the bill in concept very much. It's easy to do from a tech perspective. I think it would be a great thing to do. My concern with it is one specific thing, which is that I am told that the fact of including a picture changes something about someone's ability or right to confront evidence produced against them. And that would then require that our enforcement agents or our supervisors would have to appear at oath for every violation that is heard that they've taken a picture on. So what I said to Councilmember Yeger is that I wanna push on this and see if there is a way to achieve the same outcome without requiring our enforcement agents and our supervisors to go out of the field. But I will say, if we had to take them all out of the field to appear at oath, it would be highly problematic for the department and I think for the city.
Yeah, no, I just find it strange that at the moment there's no photos being taken. I can challenge it, and the enforcement officer is not required to appear in oath. It's just not making sense to me. But I hear you loud and clear. You're going to dig more into it.
I am.
Because I really think that this is I really think that this is the right approach that we should have in terms of showing evidence that you actually did not clean your sidewalk.
And I will report back to you, given your interest, and Councilmember Yeger on our progress.
And then finally, in terms of dog waste is a problem. One of the challenges that I have in my district and on my block is individuals that choose not to pick up after their dogs. I'm a big fan of having our trees, but with this $1 million tree campaign that prior administrations have put in. And so the city of New York, if you're not aware, as they're fixing sidewalks or as there's development being built throughout the city, what I've noticed is that the Parks Department is tagging sidewalks as to there's a tree pit coming, where the tree being installed. And one of the issues that I'm having is individuals are either not picking up after their dog, or what I experienced this morning was someone picked up after their dog and they left their plastic bag full of waste right in front of my home, right? And so I have to pick it up, because if not, I get the violation. How many enforcement officers does sanitation have focused on just dog waste or not picking up after the dog?
So we tried having a dedicated pooper scooper team, and for reasons that Josh can explain, it was not the most effective use of our resources. Josh, do you want to just give a summary of what you discussed with Councilmember Menin?
Of course, thanks very much, Councilmember. This is a violation that must be observed in the act in order to write the summons, which meant that when we tried running dedicated teams on this, we would use 311 complaints, send an enforcement agent to an area where we know this is a big problem, and they would spend all day there watching the people who are walking the dogs, trying to catch them. And they had to sort of do it undercover to make sure they didn't get seen, because of course people don't do it in front of someone who so they were doing it in plain clothes. And in an 8-hour shift, they might catch someone. It was not an effective use of resources because it's a violation that must be enforced against in person. I think that your point you make a really excellent point that the issue is not lack of access to the plastic bags. People who do this, it's not because, once in a while, I forgot my bag at home. That happens. But the scale of the problem clearly indicates that this is a cultural and education-based issue. It's not just people, I didn't know I have to. They know they have to. And they've been able to get away with it, and we'd love to continue to work on education campaigns around this.
Raise the penalty for it. Make it like something outrageous.
Jail time.
People will stop.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be jail time, but raise the penalty, like illegal dumping, $4,000 summons. Why is that different than leaving your dog's poop on the sidewalk? There has to be, because enforcement is so time intensive and so inefficient, there has to be, in my opinion, a real crazy disincentive to doing it.
Yeah. I just want to leave with this. I know that throughout many hearings, we've had conversations on how do we mitigate or address the rat problem that we have in the city of New York. And in one hearing, I heard that rats are attractive to dog poop that they eat, and so it's an issue for me where if we are addressing and we're trying to address the rat issue that we have in the city of New York, and if they are attracted to dog waste, and then there has to be a more focused conversation on how do we address dog owners who are not picking up after their dogs.
Thank you, Council Member. I'll now turn it over to Council Member Sandra Ung.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner. I want to thank you and your whole team for always being very responsive, working with my office, with dealing with the ever-challenging problems of downtown Flushing. I do just have a quick question about another problem that has not been brought up yet. I do have a tremendous amount of sidewalk littering of cardboard boxes by both brick and mortar. I believe it's both brick and mortar and vendors. Actually, I sent one over this morning where it actually fell into, I have to say, one of the busiest crosswalks of my entire district in downtown Flushing. So I'm just asking, what are the ways we could deal with these challenges? Because what happens is overnight, I would see it really happens, right? These cardboard boxes, which I believe where they're putting fruits that's being sold, fruits and vegetables by both, they're both guilty parties here, just dumping it right on the sidewalk. What is the difference between littering and dumping? And is there any ways we could do, I realize enforcement, as we were talking about, is a big topic of conversation we just had right now, but what else can we do? Could we differentiate that? And, just asking for ideas.
That one I have seen also, as like most New Yorkers have seen. For that, we need the council to pass or to hear Councilmember Botcher's bill about extending routing times. Fact of the matter is, the sidewalks and 18 inches into the street are the responsibility of the property owner to keep clean. And there's like 2 hours a day where we are able to enforce that responsibility. And so other than those 2 hours a day, we have no ability to enforce against it. So you have legislation in front of you. It's been here for 2 sessions. And I urge, as I mentioned in my testimony, this committee and this council to action it.
Thank you. And is there any way to address if there's illegal dumping by the vendors?
Yes, illegal dumping is something that we have the ability now to enforce, and we can work with you and your office to find the locations where you're having specific pain points and see if we can't use our very successful strategies that we've deployed elsewhere there.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Councilmember. I have 2 more rat-related questions, rat mitigation strategies, rather. Can you provide concrete examples of how the Rat Czar collaborates and coordinates with DOHMH and DSNY, respectively, for more effective rat mitigation interventions?
I don't know how the Rat Czar collaborates with DOHMH since I am at the Department of Sanitation. But what I can say is, in my opinion, the best, most expansive rat mitigation strategy that we have in New York City is getting the trash into containers, which we are doing with your support very aggressively. And I myself am very open to new ideas for how we can test new ways to complement that strategy, including the bill that you put forward. And I think that the city should be undertaking pilots generally that make sense to combat some of the biggest quality of life problems that we have.
Can you speak to like the frequency with which that the Rat Czar, works with DSNY to discuss
works with DSNY? Sure. She has a regular coordination meeting with all agencies that would be involved, so everyone comes together and generally gives updates. But I would say DSNY's the part we play in the fight against rats is like clearly our war on the black bags and our war on trash, which I think is the cornerstone and the centerpiece of the fight against rats in New York City.
When was the last time that there was a meeting between DSNY and the Rat Czar? You speak to that? I mean,
there's is it monthly meeting?
Okay, you have monthly meetings?
There's
okay.
monthly meetings with all of the agencies. The reason I couldn't answer the question before is I don't know beyond those meetings what type of interaction
Understood.
she has with DOH.
I have a question also on outdoor dining structures, which have become hub for rats. What is the process for DSNY to remove these outdoor dining sheds?
The Department of Transportation does that. We sometimes assist when they don't have enough person power to get it done, but they would be the agency to ask that question to. They have a number of like criteria, I believe, that render an outdoor dining shed suitable for to be taken off the street.
Commissioner, you've mentioned that surveillance tech, or you suggested the use of surveillance tech to catch misusers of litter baskets. Do you imagine limiting the use of this type of technology for civil enforcement only? And how would you be able to assure residents that their privacy is protected from other levels of local and federal enforcement?
It's a good question, and historically, because the Department of Sanitation hasn't really been in the surveillance business, I'll say that that's not something that I've thought deeply about. But given my policing background, and in particular my background building surveillance systems, I think I somewhat uniquely understand the needs to put in place thoughtful policies around how that video data is used and or shared. And so if we decide to move forward with a litter basket strategy, we'll definitely have to think through those issues.
Thank you, Commissioner. Councilman Vernikov?
Thank you very much. Hi, Commissioner. Thank you again for your work. Quick question. In my district, we have a problem with trash buildup under the trestles. And I was just wondering if you think that cameras would be something that would be helpful as a deterrent?
So it depends where those trash bags are coming from. If they are illegal dumping from a vehicle, if someone is illegally dumping them from a vehicle, then the answer is absolutely. And it's a strategy that we've deployed in hundreds of streets in the city to great effect. But every location is different, so we'd have to look at the specific location that you're talking about and make sure that it works. If it doesn't, if the bags are not coming from a car, then it won't work, because we pair the camera with a license plate reader, and when we see the bags in the camera, we'll rewind, we'll look when the bags got put there, and then we'll look at the license plate reader and find the vehicle, and then track the registered owner.
Would cameras help figure out where it's coming from?
It works when the dumping comes from a vehicle. It's because we don't and are not contemplating using technology to read and scan and identify faces. I think just a camera on its own, looking at people carrying bags, would not be the most effective thing to do citywide.
So what's the best way to figure out, where it's coming from?
In those situations, what we do if there's a chronic problem is that we can send some of our sanitation police to do stakeouts, which they do fairly regularly in different parts of the city. Now, those stakeouts are time intensive. It's important to do. We will dedicate the time to do it. I just don't want to promise that is that will be a programmatic end to the problem, meaning that will catch someone doing it, but not everyone doing it. And I'm not sure that it's a real deterrent to repeat offenders, but we will work with you and dedicate some of our enforcement resources to trying to get a hold of what's going on at that specific location.
Okay, because DSNY definitely comes to clean it up. That's not the issue. I think the issue is that the next day, what happens the next day, which is it comes back.
Right, and so my sense is that maybe some dedicated enforcement stakeouts there for a period of time will be more fruitful than just regularly coming and cleaning it up.
Okay, and since it's MTA property, is there any responsibility on MTA or DOT on this, or is this solely the responsibility of sanitation? Because
no, if it's MTA property, it's the responsibility of the MTA. However, we will work with you and with the MTA and with the MTA police to figure out how to address this.
You always do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. I have two more broader questions and within them sub-questions. So the first one is, the 2023 Mayor's Management Report announced the suspension of street cleanliness grading program administered by the Mayor's Office of Operations. The report also promised a successor program. I think in your testimony you were talking about that. Could you please describe how the successor program will work and what your conversations have been like with the council and the admin
Sure.
office?
That is still being worked out. I know that there are conversations going on now between Councilmember Moya, who sponsored the bill, and City Hall and the Department of Sanitation to work out some of the particulars on it.
Any idea on when the admin expects to begin operating this successor program? And which agency will perform this program?
I don't know, but I know that the conversations have really like ratcheted up of late, and I know that it's a goal of the council members and the administration to make sure that whatever this council passes in regards is thoughtful and the right thing to do. I think everyone or anyone who saw that the old scorecard knew that it was an absolute joke. I mean, no one in New York City, or I'd like to meet the person in New York City who thinks that the streets are 92, 94% clean. I mean, yeah. I'd love for that to be a reality, but like to deploy like people and time and energy and money, it's just a waste if it's not giving us an accurate picture or actionable information to use to guide our cleaning.
Well, I'm delighted that conversations are ratcheting up. As soon as you have an understanding as to when the successor program will be implemented, if you could just let us know. Let's talk about containerization. I'm sure it's a topic you like to talk about. DSNY recently contracted with a single manufacturer to sell trash containers to city residences. Homeowners will be required to purchase and use these DSNY approved containers. Does DSNY intend to provide any sort of assistance to low-income households for this purchase?
So the requirement is for 1 to 9 unit buildings, and the requirement is on the property owner, not the resident. And so the bins, the requirement for 1 to 9 unit residences to use wheelie bins for their trash will go, or is contemplated to go into effect this fall. Prior to that, the standardized New York City wheelie bin will be available for sale. Those wheelie bins are going to be very high quality and dramatically discounted, like way below standard market rates. So they will,
the price per bin?
The price that we had set up in the RFP was $50 for the most standard size, and the price is going to come in at below $50 for the most commonly used size. The requirement to use that specific bin, though, the standardized one, will not go into effect until 2 years later. And the reason why is that we wanted to make sure that people who had recently bought bins, maybe they heard all of our stuff about how bins are effective rat deterrent. Maybe they just bought bins. And so we didn't want them to have to throw out brand new bins to buy the New York City standard model. But the bins that we are going to unveil soon, that will go up for sale soon, are very high quality at already significantly discounted rates.
That leads me to my next question, which I imagine households will probably have to dispose of their old bins for the new bins. Would that be correct then?
Well, not for 2 years. So if a household is currently using a bin and they don't want to dispose of a new bin that they bought, they should use it and for the next 2 years. And at that time, they will be required to use the standardized bill. It's actually like 2.5 years from now.
And how would that be promoted so that they don't have to dispose of them until the 2 years?
We are going to be sending a mailer to every 1 to 9 unit residents in the city shortly. And that mailer will include all of the information about like what's required in November in the fall, and then what will be required 2 years later, as with information about how to buy the standard discounted New York City bin.
What is the standard size of the bins? Do you have that information?
There's 2 sizes. Well, there's 2 sizes. There is one that's like closer to 40 gallons and one that's closer to 50 gallons. So a single family home would probably use the smaller size, and larger residents would use the larger size. But yeah.
And that's up to the discretion which of the 2 they want.
Yes, the website where you can order from, or the hotline that you can call, or you'll be able to call to order it, will have all of that information, like stuff like what it's recommended for, what type of residence or building it's recommended for, how many like standard kitchen trash bags fit in it, what the size is, the height, all of that information. But we're trying to be very practical in how we present the information so that people buy the right thing.
And I think I know the answer to the next question. Does the manufacturing contract require that the manufacturer produce containers that are rat resistant?
Yes.
How frequently should residents expect to have to replace their DSNY approved containers?
These are high quality bins, so you can go and buy bins of very different quality, and they last very different amounts. It generally depends on how much you pay for it. What I would say is I can't give you a specific time frame, but this is a high quality bin made out of thick material that is designed not to break or get holes.
Yeah, if at any point you have knowledge of you may actually know now the material of these bins, but if you don't have that, would appreciate if you could send that to us.
I'll send it to you. I'll get you all the information.
Also, if you can get us the life period of these bins, when they are more likely to wear and tear, that would also be helpful information.
Yeah, this is all public information in the RFP, but I will get it for you and we'll send it directly to your office.
And my last question on containers is why did DSNY decide to work with a single manufacturer as opposed to multiple manufacturers?
That's easy. Because we wanted to be able to sell the bins at remarkable price discounts. And the way that we're doing that, the way that we are able to have a high quality New York City bin that would retail for well above $100, being sold at below $50, is by creating so much price competition in our RFP and awarding it to a single vendor, because that's just the way markets work.
And my last question is on neighborhood cleanups. The Sanitation Foundation has engaged in neighborhood cleanups, which make a big difference when they happen, but they aren't really a sustained solution. An area that is clean 1 week ends up with new trash the next week because we don't always have follow-up. Does DSNY have any plans to work closer with the Sanitation Foundation on these neighborhood cleanups to ensure that the impact is long-lasting?
So the neighborhood cleanups are what they are. They're a bunch of neighbors generally getting together to keep the neighborhood clean. And the Sanitation Foundation is a wonderful 501c3 organization that helps facilitate neighborhood cleanups, but there is truly nothing that stops a bunch of neighbors with or without the sanitation department or the sanitation foundation present to do what is done in those cleanups every day, every week, whatever. And as far as the continued cleaning, we do have our cleaning programs like our targeted neighborhood task force that clean city-owned property.
Thank you. Colleagues have any other further questions? Councilmember Yeger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, I just want to follow up on some questions that Councilwoman Vernikov brought up and also others regarding dumping and people misusing the corner waste bins. A number of years ago, I think in the 2018 session of the council, a law was passed that that gave the sanitation department the authority to write summonses based on information contained in the dumped material. Sifting through the household trash, you find envelopes with names on it. You can surmise that they came from that home, and summons based on that. It's rebuttable evidence, but it's a place to go to. Do you utilize that tool, and
No.
is it successful? Because let me add to before you answer it. What I've seen in reporting an overflowing bin and 15 bags around it is the district will send out a truck and go get the trash and have a nice day. But I don't see anything more than then they throw it in the back of a truck. So, and I'm not saying that maybe we shouldn't ask sanitation guys to go through the bags and rip them open. But
it's gross, and God bless they do it. Not every time. So what I would say about that is, it's a tool we can, and from time to time, do use. But there is no way to scale that up and have it be a regular thing or a regular practice that is done every time there is an overflowing litter basket in the city.
do the districts get told that if you get a complaint about a particular corner, every week, 2, 3 from the council member or the district manager, then rip those bags open and see what's in it? Because it's the same home. I mean, we know it's the same.
I
it's
hear
the
you on
apartments
that.
on top of the stores. We
And
know what they are.
I hear you on that. And, that has not come up in the times that I have been at Trash Dash, but I will be sure that for the next 7 weeks, that's how we get through, or 7, 8 weeks, as we get through all of the boroughs and we see everyone, that they are reminded that for locations where they have chronic problems with commercial or other than walking trash clogging up a litter basket, that be something that we employ. Thank you for the reminder on that.
My sense is that this tends to be specific around locations where there are commercial on the first floor, and the second and third story is residential.
Yep.
And there's commercial pickup, but the residents don't want to wait until after 8 or whatever, so they take it, they throw it in the corner. But the thing is, they're not throwing a shopping bag, they're throwing out these big hefty bags. And you see it, it's not just in my neighborhood, but wherever I go, I see that's the kind of location that gets that problem. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, this panel is excused. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you. We'll be taking a 5-minute break before proceeding to the next part of our hearing.
And I promise I'm very excited for this next phase. Just need a little break. Thank you. I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an acceptance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic. We'd like to repeat, on today's hearing topic, street cleanliness or any of the legislation on our agenda today. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. The first four on our first panel will be Danielle Avisar, Lena Frey, Citra Bowman, Courtney Scheffler.
You may begin when ready. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Abreu and the Sanitation Committee. I'm a proud member of the Grow NYC Workers Collective, a labor union represented by RWDSU, the Retail Wholesale Department Store Union. I'm a compost coordinator and driver for Grow NYC until May 20th. This is the date that begins the layoffs for 80 of my coworkers. Together with our partners at the New York City Compost Project, we work to provide New Yorkers with waste equity access through food scrap collections and processing, outreach, education, and finished compost. We keep the city clean by removing pest food sources from the sidewalks and by providing finished compost and programming for communities to tend to street trees. It is the workers and volunteers who keep our neighborhoods clean through our labor. Due to the defunding of our program, I now deliver food scraps collected at Grow NYC drop-offs to Staten Island compost site for processing. There, the workers gesture to the trash bags piled high in their bay as they describe the high rates of contamination received from curbside bins in the public school systems. They told me that much of what is next to the organics we bring is just trash. Because there is not a worker to audit during the curbside or smart bin collections, the operations workers have to take time to audit from their work or discard the collections entirely due to the high rate of contamination of non-organics. This indicates a systemic failure of a hasty rollout with insufficient funding for outreach and education necessary to build enduring practices. Right now, participation of these programs is insignificant. The undervaluing of our efforts to give our neighbors a cleaner city are demonstrated by the defunding of community compost, curbside service gaps, and inadequate outreach that are counterintuitive to the green and clean messaging we hear but have yet to see. Curbside and smart bins alone will not realize the waste equity needs of our city. If this administration were earnestly committed to its purported environmental objectives, these services provided to the public would be funded and legislated beyond our year-to-year contracts with DSNY. Every neighborhood deserves waste equity. Our work is part of making that possible.
Hello, my name is Danielle Avisar. I am a resident and mother on the Upper East Side. Julie Menin is my local councilwoman. About a year ago, me and various other mothers and caretakers got together to propose solutions to Julie Menin for the dog waste issue that is affecting our neighborhood. It significantly got worse since COVID. I think there's just a lot of irresponsible pet owners that are not taking care of their animals, that are just leaving dog waste all over the place. It really degrades our neighborhoods. We're constantly looking down. We can't look up. We can't look up at the buildings, appreciate any of the beauty around us. I'm constantly telling my kids to dodge buckets of waste that we see on the street. It's very excessive, and it gives the city a horrible reputation. Children are playing with it. They're bringing it home. They're bringing it into their schools. They're a very vulnerable demographic. Some have gone to the ER because of it, so it's spreading a lot of disease. Whatever is currently in place, the strategy, it's not working. It's just simply not working, so we have to make this change. We either need to increase the fines, enforce it, but at least the bags and the public health awareness campaign that we're setting forth is a step towards progress. The health campaign that we're proposing needs to be aggressively, and I mean aggressively pushed, because I don't think people understand the impact that the dog waste is having on communities, especially in an area with a high concentration of young kids and babies. Thank you very much for Julie Menin to have listened to us. We do feel that we have been heard, but now it's a serious time for change.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Citra Bowman, and I am a member of the Grow NYC Workers Collective, represented by RWDSU. I currently work in education and outreach of public schools through the Zero Waste Schools program at Grow NYC. As you can imagine, schools produce a large amount of waste that needs to be picked up every day. Based on the waste characterization study by DSNY in 2023, 49% of all waste produced by schools can be composted, and another 35% can be recycled. The Zero Waste Schools program supplies schools with important infrastructure such as brown bins and orange tilt trucks that allow students to compost and schools to store their organic waste until DSNY pickup. These containers are instrumental in decreasing the number of rodents, especially in neighborhoods that are rat mitigation zones. Unfortunately, not all schools receive the infrastructure that they need, and my job is to fill in the gaps to ensure that schools get all the supplies they need. The outreach that I do is not only for students, but also for faculty and staff. I have folks ask me about how to get a brown bin for their home, what goes in the brown bin, and when you can put it out. Businesses such as hotels and supermarkets get even less outreach than schools. Many of them are completely unaware that it is required by law for them to separate their compost from their regular trash. Without better education and outreach initiatives, composting will continue to have low rates of participation and high rates of contamination. I'm asking today for the City Council to reinstate the funding for the community composting programs, Zero Waste programming at Grow NYC, and the New York City Compost Project. It's kind of incredible today to sit here and hear the Commissioner champion the Zero Waste Schools program while simultaneously defunding it. These programs are instrumental in providing education that will not only reduce the amount of garbage we produce, but also keep our city cleaner and healthier. Thank you for your time.
Hi, good afternoon, Chair Abreu and Councilmember Brewer and staff. My name is Lena Fry, and I am here today as a proud community compost worker and member of the Grow NYC Workers Collective, a labor union with RWDSU. The recent defunding of the community compost program and the city's failure to renew the contracts for the Zero Waste Schools and Stop and Swap programs will leave millions of New Yorkers without vital waste reduction services. It also means 79 union workers like myself losing our jobs. Community compost is one of the best ways to keep our city clean and mitigate the rat problem. Food waste sitting out on the street in plastic bags is a feast for rats, and diverting this waste through community composting is the most cost-effective preventative measure that the city can take. We have a sanitation commissioner who has publicly stated that she doesn't care about reducing trash, that it isn't her job. Well, it is my job, at least for the next 2 weeks, and it should be a priority for the city. Without the education and outreach efforts of zero waste workers, school compost programs in the city brown bins will continue to be contaminated and ineffective. You cannot defund these waste reduction programs laying off union workers and expect this city to be clean and functional. We already have a winning strategy to address rat infestations, and it is community compost. I implore the City Council to reinstate the funding for the zero waste programs at Grow NYC and for the New York City Compost Project. Funds must be made immediately available, not just to save jobs, but also the 30-plus years of progress that we have made towards a clean and sustainable New York City for all. Thank you.
Thank you. This panel is excused. I like your hat too. The next panel will include Ryan Castalia, Renee Del Carmen, Deborah Thomas, and Kathy Nazari. I meant to say Castalia. Or is it Castalia?
Castalia.
Castalia, okay.
Thank you.
I guess I got it wrong both times.
No worries.
You may begin.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ryan Castalia. I'm Executive Director of Sure We Can, a Brooklyn-based redemption center and nonprofit serving independent recyclers. Thank you to Chair Abreu for the opportunity to testify today. And I want to commend the council for recommending that recognizing that action needs to be taken to ensure our communities aren't buried underneath the overwhelming burdens of pollution and climate change. The consequences of inaction are evident. Millions of New Yorkers are in real danger of losing their lives or livelihoods, while sensible waste policy has been trapped in political paralysis, even as the most effective recycling system that exists in our state, the bottle bill, crumbles around us. The bottle bill works, period. It's demonstrated its efficacy continuously for decades, resulting in the diversion of millions of tons of waste and vast reductions in litter in our communities without cost to the city or state. In fact, it generates revenue. It's even become a mechanism for environmental justice, creating a low-barrier way for marginalized people from all kinds of backgrounds to become independent recyclers who work, contribute to their communities, and earn a livelihood. In a very basic way, this system makes our communities cleaner and stronger. A study done by Sure We Can in 2023 indicated independent recyclers in New York City earn an average wage of around $5 an hour, less than a third of minimum wage for essential workers on the front lines of waste diversion and recycling. With 3 simple updates, an already working system could reach new heights. A 10-cent deposit would push our return rates. It would mean more income for independent recyclers and more revenue for the state from unredeemed deposits. Redemption centers across the state are also closing. There are no redemption centers right now in Manhattan. An increased handling fee would allow redemption centers to flourish instead of suffer, creating new access points and driving local economic activity. I'll say it again, canners are essential workers, a green army on the front lines of the struggle against climate change and environmental injustice, ready to work in partnership with the city to make our communities healthier, cleaner, and more just. In order to do so, they need respect and support and to be included as stakeholders in issues that affect them, like containerization. New York City is in a unique position to provide accountability to the state around passing the bottle bill and improving conditions for canners. And today, I call upon you to continue pushing, like you did last year, pass another resolution supporting bottle bill expansion at the state level and working together with the independent recyclers of New York City to keep our system alive and our communities clean.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you. I'll be also interpreting for my friend Renee.
Good afternoon. Mi nombre es René del Carmen. Fui reciclador, pero ahora soy el manager de Sure We Can. La carencia por nuestra comunidad de niveles bajos de recursos económicos cada vez nos compromete a la exigencia del compromiso de los pagos de impuestos, renta, de vivienda, alimentos, artículos de limpieza y salud y otros no establecidos. Cada vez nos consume la salud mental al saber que todo está subiendo de precio, sobre todo los combustibles y la energía eléctrica. Nosotros como recicladores nos hemos dado cuenta el alto volumen de contaminación en nuestro medio ambiente. Nosotros, al hacer el trabajo de recolectar latas y botellas, y claro, no hablamos de 1 o 2 recicladores, aquí en la ciudad de Nueva York. Somos miles de recicladores en la ciudad. La prueba está en el censo de cada compañía vendedora de bebidas que opera en la ciudad y cómo se responsabilizan del importe de sus productos que les devolvemos como recicladores. Sentimos que estamos ayudando a ahorrar el gasto de un tanto por ciento de energéticos y petróleo crudo por el proceso de separación de basura en maquinarias pesadas. Sé que es fácil pensar, las máquinas lo hacen todo, pero es difícil responder cómo hacer que no contaminen las máquinas. Nosotros lo que buscamos es impulsar más al trabajo manual para reciclar, pero también buscamos una estabilidad de ingresos en nuestras bolsas financieras. Pedimos que se nos pague más digno como en otros estados de 5 centavos a 10 centavos por unidad, como ley de envase. Estamos tan seguros que nuestra comunidad agradecería esta justicia y sobre todo que estamos ayudando a nuestro medio ambiente. A quien corresponda, muchas gracias por su fina atención.
In English, my name is Rene del Carmen. I used to be a recycler, and today I'm one of the managers of Sure We Can. Our community doesn't have a lot of economic resources, yet we're still called upon to pay for food, health, rent, taxes, and other basic needs. Our mental health is increasingly consumed by the knowledge that the price of everything is rising, especially fuel, food, and electricity. As recyclers, we're keenly aware of the huge amount of pollution in our environment. We do the hard work of collecting bottles and cans, and of course, we're not talking about 1 or 2 recyclers here. In New York City, there are thousands and thousands of recyclers collecting a huge amount of material. It's evident from the amount of bottles and cans that are redeemed. At Sure We Can alone, over 13 million containers each year. We feel that we are helping to save the planet, not to mention helping reduce expenses and impact of gas and energy for waste hauling and mechanized sorting using heavy machinery. I know it's easy to think that machines can do anything a human can, but these machines can be very inefficient and are prone to contamination. We are looking to promote a human-oriented approach to this work, starting with financial stability for canners. We ask that we be paid a decent wage. Other states have already increased their deposits from 5 cents to 10 cents. The community is in great need and will be so relieved at this change, not just for the financial benefit, but also because it is just and because it helps the environment. Thank you very much to the chair and the council for your time.
No, thank you, Sure We Can. It was a privilege visiting Sure We Can yesterday, and the work that you do is an extension, really, of our city's recycling efforts, making sure our environment is cleaner, more green, and the dignity that this work provides for canners, lateros. I mean, we love to see it. Thank you for your testimony. Deborah?
Good afternoon. My name is Deborah Thomas. I'm an animal lover and advocate, a volunteer at the New York City Animal Care Centers, and a member and supporter of many animal welfare organizations, as well as a New York City voter. I'm here today to testify in support of Intro 736, also known as Flacco's Law. Unfortunately, I live in a neighborhood on the Upper West Side near Morningside Heights that's home to many, many rats, and I see them daily helping themselves to contents of garbage cans outside of the apartment buildings on my street. Although I dislike these rats as much as anyone else does, I must admit that the continued efforts over the past few years to get rid of them by using rat poison has not been very successful. It's for that reason that I'm very much in favor of employing the pilot program proposed in Intro 736, which would use contraceptive pellets to lessen the rat population rather than poison. Besides being much more humane, the proposed contraceptive method would also be much safer for use around children, pets, and wildlife, including birds like our friend Flacco, the owl who died from ingesting a poisoned rodent. I also want to thank my City Council member, Shaun Abreu, for proposing this bill, and I urge all humane City Council members to stand on the right side of history and please support, vote for, and pass Intro 736. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah. Kathy?
You're welcome.
And it's very important that you stay within your 2 minutes, by the way. You did great, Deborah. Let's keep it within 2 minutes because there is a hearing after this that will take place in this room. But please get through your testimony as well.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Abreu and Councilwoman Gail Brewer. I'm Kathy Nazari, founder and chair of the Lights Out Coalition, a diverse group of animal, avian, environmental activists, scientists, rehabilitators, legal, medical, economic, and design professionals, as well as a vice president in the United Nations system, some of whom you'll hear today or via written testimony, all united to protect urban wildlife through science-based and common sense strategies. I am thrilled to be testifying today in support of Intro 736, Flacco's Law. Mayor Adams declared a war on rats, yet while we waste literally millions of dollars on rodenticides, the rat population has exploded. There is currently nearly 1 rat for every 3 people living in New York City. The rats are winning. For 2 years, we sought a political partner to pilot a rat contraception program and could not be happier to work with Councilmember Shaun Abreu, who has broken with tradition by being proactive and preventative and using a scientific approach to what is an issue of biology. To use the councilman's words, we can't kill our way out of this problem, nor should we try. By reducing the number of births, we can successfully, significantly reduce the population without causing harm to rats, wildlife, pets, or human children, the latter of which is so often omitted from discussions despite millions of sick children and thousands of deaths from rodenticide ingestion. And let's not forget the damage it does to the soil and water. Is anyone testing our drinking water for the presence of rodenticides? Lights Out is proud to have as one of our members Dr. Loretta Mayer, who invented rat contraception, and her Wisdom Good Works. They developed the first solid, easily deployed contraceptive rodent feed in the form of a non-poisonous pellet called Good Bites. Studies show up to 98% population reductions. Poison was never so efficient. The pellets are very sweet and appealing to rats who carry it back to their burrows to other family members. It renders both males and females infertile within a few short days of ingesting their first, I'll just finish up, serving, with a minimum of weekly returns to feed and fertility continues. Made completely from non-toxic natural ingredients, these pellets will not harm animals, humans, or the environment. Following the heartbreaking and completely avoidable death of Flacco from rodenticides, New Yorkers have indicated they want humane solutions. Policy needs to reflect changing times. In less than 3 weeks, this bill has bipartisan support, the majority of the committee, council majority, and is well on its way to a supermajority.
Thank you, Kathy. We have 29 sponsors, right?
29, yeah. We're told it's the fastest moving animal bill ever in the council, which says our lawmakers are ready for change. New York will make history by being the first, not only in the nation, but in the world, to mandate rat contraception, leading with science, not violence. Our heartfelt thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Kathy. You're a very critical partner in this effort. Our next panel will include Margaret Lee, Elena Gonzalez-White, Rockwell Schwartz, and David Lee. Are we missing someone? Margaret Lee, Elena, Rockwell, and David. Who are missing? We'll do it in the order the people came to testify. So our next person, if David isn't here, we'll do Deborah Mullins. Deborah Mullins? Okay. You may start.
Council Member Gail Brewer. Chairman Abreu and members of the Sanitation Committee, I'm Debbie Mullins, president of the Linnean Society of New York and a member organization of the Lights Out Coalition. I'm here to express our support for Intro 736. Raptor populations have increased dramatically since DDT was banned in 1972. And in New York City, we're privileged to have many raptors nest here and raise their young. Charismatic birds like Flacco, the Eurasian eagle owl, and Barry, the barred owl, spent time in the city and captured the hearts of the public. rat poison contributed to the death of both Flacco and Barry. Rats are one of the main food sources for raptors in New York City, and while providing a reliable source of food, many of the rats consumed by raptors have anticoagulant pesticides in their bodies that are passed on to the birds. As a result, many raptors living in the city meet the same fate as Flacco and Barry. Rodenticide poisoning is widespread. Scientists at the Cornell University College of Medicine estimated that 68% of the red-tailed hawks in the state have rat poison in their systems. Councilmember Abreu's bill calling for the use of non-toxic rat contraception as an alternative to the anticoagulant rodenticides currently in use could provide a proof of concept needed to phase out the use of rodenticides that are so dangerous to raptors, pets, and even children. A landmark study published in 2019 found that 3 billion birds have been lost from North America since 1970. It's imperative that government at all levels act now to mitigate the deadly effects of human-altered landscapes and toxic chemicals on birds. I urge the City Council to establish a rat contraceptive program as a first step towards phasing out the use of toxic rodenticides.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you could also bring the mic up closer, please.
I'm Margaret Lee, a longtime resident of Lower Manhattan and astute observer of New York's non-human beings, including rats. I felt it important to be here in person to support Intro 736, the rat contraception bill, and to personally thank the New York Council members who initiated and co-sponsored this life-changing action for wildlife. It has the potential to make New York City a more compassionate place for urban wildlife and may inspire other urban areas to do better for their underappreciated residents. I'm excited by Flacco's laws, named for New York City's beloved owl, who tragically died as a result of rodenticide poisoning. Like many New Yorkers, I was deeply moved by the life and death of Flacco. He had a year of freedom, out of captivity, but ultimately succumbed to the city's perils, most tragically our city's war on rats. As one of the rare New Yorkers who actually admire rats for their lovely, quirky, fascinating qualities and the incalculable ways we are indebted to them, I'm saddened by the ways they are vilified and so viciously treated when they're simply struggling to survive against all odds. Rats never experience the freedom Flacco had. They are under constant attack in a city that considers them pests, to be destroyed by any manner of diabolical methods and products, no matter how cruel and insidious, all because humans regard them as unworthy of respect in a hostile environment we created. I was in high school on Long Island when I was introduced to Rachel Carson's landmark book, Silent Spring, required reading many years ago. It opened my eyes to the horrors of insecticides and rodenticides and to the ways we are all connected and impacted by how we treat other beings. Rats live, if we can call it living, distinctly separate but also very much with us. They don't receive adulation like Flacco, except by those.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next one.
Good afternoon. I'm Rockwell Schwartz, a resident of Brooklyn, where for the past 8 years I've operated an animal sanctuary from my home. It is in this capacity that I interact with New Yorkers as they navigate challenges of rodents in the urban environment. This ranges from trying to find solutions to the rodents in and around their New York City residences, to finding orphaned babies, to calling me at all hours of the night in a panic when they find a rat who is slowly bleeding out after consuming poison, which can take between 12 hours and an entire week to slowly and excruciatingly kill them. I do not hate rats. I love them. But it's for that reason that I am aligned with those who despise rats and would like to find an actual effective solution to the New York City rat population. I would like us to have a city that does not have rats, not just for human welfare, but because the rats themselves suffer. Next week, will be celebrating 64 years since the FDA approved human contraceptives, approved the birth control pill. And we are marking many decades of human contraceptives being tested on rodents in laboratories. With that in mind, I have brought with me the over-the-counter rat edible contraceptives that I have been distributing around my home in Brooklyn. This is not something that I should be having to do as a New York City resident from my own pocket, and this is why I support Intro 736 and the implementation of contraceptives at a city level. Thank you for your support of the bill.
Next up.
Good afternoon, Chairman Abreu and esteemed members of the committee. Thank you, Councilor Brewer, for sticking around to hear our testimony. My name is Elena Gonzalez-White, and I represent Wisdom GoodWorks in New York City and on the East Coast at large. Wisdom GoodWorks is a 501c3 nonprofit established to provide alternatives to lethal and poisonous approaches to wildlife population management, which have been the failing status quo for the last several hundred years. We do this by investing in scientific research and sharing expertise in the development of real-world applications of fertility control measures. Measures which aim to make this world a safer place for all inhabitants, including my fellow New Yorkers, our children, our pets, the endangered members of our food chain, and yes, even the rats. We rely on science, not violence. We believe you must rely on data, focus, transparency, and learning. Past attempts to apply fertility control to rats in New York City have failed because available products at the time of study failed to follow the science, the behavior of the world's fastest breeding mammal. We stand at the ready to do better. Any product used must meet the requirements of the intended target. An urban rat requires the same things a human seeks: food, shelter, and water. While we appreciate Commissioner Tisch's efforts at containerization across the city, we need to take it a step further. For a product to compete amidst our city's esteemed restaurant offerings, you must make it continuously, easily available, the best tasting to the rats, and of course, it must be effective. Above all, it must be safe for anyone that comes into contact with it. We must provide food that contracepts them, makes them infertile, not poison, which barely and only temporarily slows the growth of their population. Our solid pellet Good Bites have been developed with each of these imperative metrics in mind. We urge you to stand in support.
Thank you for bringing the pellets as an example. Thank you. The next panel, please. Linda Mann, L'Oreal Crowder, Mary Claire Flaherty, and Derek Schiller. You may begin. And please keep it to the 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Abreu and my council member, Gail Brewer. Thank you for both being here. My name is Linda Mann, and I am reading the testimony on behalf of the League of Humane Voters, Sherry Reich. As a resident of New York City and the coalition liaison for the League of Humane Voters of New York, a proud member of the Lights Out Coalition, I am urging the New York City Council's Sanitation Committee and the full council to vote in favor of Intro 736 that would establish a rat contraceptive pilot program. Wildlife rehabilitators have long known through sad experience that poison has been killing not only rats, but also raptors and carrion feeders. Flacco's untimely passing has let the world know that rat poison in New York City must go. The victims of the poison are not only wildlife. Domestic animals are at risk as well, and sadly, some New York City residents have lost their companion animals to rat poison. Just one of many sad stories was Callie, the adorable 7-month-old Rottweiler puppy who died from eating rodenticide during his walks in Washington Heights. Despite extensive medical intervention, he suffered incredible pain and died. Both the ACC and Wild Bird Fund, the latter also a member of Lights Out, have seen more than their share of domestic animals poisoned by rodenticide. The League of Humane Voters of New York is in full support of Intro 736. It offers hope that a harmless means of reducing the population of rats in New York City will spare the lives of many other species. Let's lead with science, not violence. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Crowder.
Good afternoon, Chair Abreu and Councilmember Brewer. My name is L'Oreal Crowder, Co-Vice Chair of Manhattan Solid Waste Advisory Board and a member of the Lights Out Coalition. I'm reading testimony on behalf of Jessica Savonte, attorney and co-founder of a fellow coalition member organization. They All Want to Live, a New York City-based animal rescue and advocacy group, is in support of Councilmember Shaun Abreu's bill that would mandate a rat contraceptive pilot. We have had the opportunity to review this scientific evidence demonstrating that the compound is extremely effective and, when deployed according to the protocol developed and tested by Wisdom, the nonprofit founded by Dr. Loretta Mayer, is expected to succeed. Past attempts utilizing rat contraception have not been effective due largely to user error, and as well as the fact that other compounds were not as effective or delicious as what will be used in the pilot pursuant to this bill. Poison is not working. It is not controlling the rat population. It is putting wildlife, pets, and even children at great risk and causing great harm. And it's not cheap. The city is throwing its money away, doing enormous damage, and not achieving anything. It is time to let science, reason, and compassion guide us as we do better for the city and all of its residents, human and non-human alike. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up.
My name is Mary Flaherty, and I volunteer for birds. I want to thank Lights Out Coalition for posting about the opportunity to voice support for Intro 736. It's great that we have a chance to develop a humane way to control the rat population while protecting our birds that are so essential to the ecosystem. Currently, the city uses poison to control the rat population. The problem is that the poison travels up the food chain because birds of prey eat the poisoned rodents and they are poisoned. This causes birds to experience internal bleeding, a weakening of the immune system, a loss of coordination, disorientation, neurological symptoms, and reproductive problems. The poison may ultimately cause death, as it did for New York City's famous Flacco the owl. The literature on rat birth control, called contrapest, indicates that it won't travel up the food chain in a meaningful way due to the small dosage and the way it metabolizes. Intro 36 would require the city's health department to sterilize rats in 2 neighborhoods as a part of a pilot program. New York City also has plans in place to fight rats in other ways too, including upgrading proper garbage disposal. Those measures and rat contraception should be very effective in controlling the rat population. New York loved Flacco. Let's honor his legacy by protecting our wonderful owls, eagles, hawks, falcons, and vultures from the dangers of rat poison. Intro 736 is an important and exciting project, and people are relieved to know that our raptors may be moving towards less perilous lives. Please vote for 736. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schiller.
Hi. My name is Derek Schiller. I'm a community member in Brooklyn, and I am a philosopher who specializes in consciousness. So I wanted to say something on behalf of the rats and in favor of Introduction 736. So rats are sentient creatures. That's the scientific consensus. They have a brain plan that is shared with us and with all other mammals. But rats are actually more closely related to us than we are to dogs and cats. Poison is not a nice way to reduce the rat population. I agree that we should try to minimize the population of rats for our shared interests, but I think that we should continue to explore ways that will allow us to do this without having to routinely and persistently poison them. I don't know if contraceptions are the best way to do this, but I want to applaud the explorational effort. So thank you.
Thank you. Next panel. Galicia Outs, Leah Babuke, Nayla Costa, and Christopher Leon Johnson. And if there's anyone here who would like to give in-person testimony, you'd have to fill out this form. If you haven't already.
Me or who, me?
Starting with Galicia.
Good morning, and thank you for this hearing. My name is Galithia Otis, and I'm here in support of Intro 736. I'm a New York State wildlife rehabilitator, so I've seen many hawks die from secondary anticoagulant rodenticide poisoning. In other words, poisoning by ingestion of rats who have consumed anticoagulant rodenticides. These beautiful birds, who are our allies in keeping rat populations down, come in with swollen, seeping legs, widespread bruising, blood in their mouth because they're literally bleeding out from everywhere, totally incapacitated. It's a terrible way to die. We know that this poison is killing our native wildlife. We know it's happening regularly, frequently. We know we are doing this to them, and we know that this deadly poison is all over our sidewalks in front of everyone's yard. We have to find a better way. I'm also someone who has direct experience with rat and mite contraceptives because I work at a sanctuary upstate where we deploy them in areas where we see evidence of mice and rats. And I can tell you that this stuff works. We've been using the rat contraceptive for several years, the mouse contraceptive only for several months. And in all locations where it was where either one was deployed, there was a significant reduction in the rat population to the point where there was no physical evidence of their presence, no or very few sightings, and no feces. I believe that the use of rat contraceptives, along with more investment in sanitation and parks department's efforts to keep our streets and parks clean, and investment in organizations and programs diverting food waste from the trash to compost, offer a cruelty-free way to significantly reduce rat populations. And I thank everyone who is making those efforts happen.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lou Dubuque, and I'm here today representing the New York City chapter of the National Waste and Recycling Association. NWRA represents the hardworking men and women of the industry who collect and manage the waste, recyclables, and organics produced by the more than 10,000 commercial entities in this great city. I would like to thank Chairperson Abreu and the rest of the Sanitation and Solid Waste Management Committee for the opportunity to speak here today. I'm here today testifying in opposition to the resolution calling for the expansion of the state's bottle bill law. Any bottle bill expansion will only further duplicate the state's recycling process. Recycling technologies have advanced significantly since the bottle bill was originally introduced over 40 years ago. Now there are two redundant recycling systems, a bottle bill system recovering a limited percentage of the recycling stream, and material recovery facilities, otherwise known as MRFs, recovering all recyclables. Materials considered under the bottle bill expansion are already being recycled by MRFs. Solutions are needed for hard-to-recycle materials MRFs can't process, i.e. carpets, tires, mattresses, and lithium-ion batteries, not plastic bottles or aluminum cans. New York City residents and businesses will still pay for two recycling systems, a per-container fee under the expanded bottle bill system, and a residential and commercial curbside service for solid waste and recycling. States instituted bottle bills as litter abatement programs before curbside recycling was initiated, and is now used by just 10 states as they are inefficient methods of managing post-use of the product. New York State would be better served by investing unclaimed deposit money in performance standards, existing infrastructure, education, litter cleanup, enforcement, and recycling systems for municipalities. An expanded bottle bill system will harm recycling due to the fact that containers targeted for the expansion are currently being managed efficiently in local recycling programs. They are key items in the recycling bin that have been positive commodity value.
Thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Next.
Nope, I'm sorry.
One day, I saw rats dying of poison in my backyard. I asked the super from the building next to me to kill the rat. He smiled, eager to help, and threw him alive in the garbage. No, he's suffering. I want to kill him, I said. I got a gardening tool from my landlords and thought I would decapitate the rat, like Shogun. Quick, end his pain. I squished his throat with the metal. The rat was squeaking with all his strength. His head didn't come off. It took about 1 very long minute for it to die of suffocation. My hands applying force and his tiny throat squished against the asphalt. He finally died. All my rat stories are unforgettable. We don't want the rats, but I don't want them to suffer. This program is a dream come true for me. It is the only humane solution so far that I know of, and I thank you for considering it.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Johnson.
Hello, good afternoon, Mr. Abreu. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson, and I know you're the chair for the Sanitation Committee, so you deal with trash. And I want to make a opposition to a trash bill that you introduced to the City Council. That is Intro 737-2024. That will amend the Administrative Code of the City of New York to making the apps put a tip option
Please,
for the
please
delivery
stay
workers.
on.
Yeah, this is happening.
Can you please stay on topic? It's unrelated to trash.
It's on topic. It's a crappy
on
bill.
Topic. I'm going to give you an opportunity to correct. If not, they're going to have to escort you out.
All right, no problem. All right, so I'm gonna say right now the bill is garbage, and that's all I gotta say. Stop being captive to the nonprofits. Stop being captive to Transalt open plans. Make the
This
road
is
New
off
York.
topic.
So that's all I gotta say. I mean, but why you letting them? You let the deliberatists speak.
You got to be on topic. My apologies, Mr. Johnson.
I'm on topic, and it's a trash bill. You're the committee for the trash committee, right? So I'm saying you're introduce a trashy bill because you're captive to the nonprofits and the unions, and this is a trashy bill. So that's all I got. That's the truth. You know, you need to repeal this bill. You can't force the apps to do what you want them to do. You're a lawyer. You know this. You know that this is a stupid bill, and all it's going to do is hurt the workers more. So, because they run around with trash all day. So you're the trash chair. You know the deliveristas, they have to drive with the e-bikes over garbage and trash all day. So you know this. So like I said, this bill is a bad bill. You need to repeal this bill. Stop being captive to the nonprofits. Oswald Felice and Shaker Kirshen are both lawyers. They should have told you this. So stop being captive to open plans and all these nonprofits and serve your community. Your community is against this stuff. So that's the truth, and that's all I gotta say. You're the trash chair. Trashy bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Have a good day. All right, we are now moving over to Zoom. First up is Rita McMahon. You have 2 minutes.
I am Rita McMahon, director of the Wild Bird Fund, New York City's only wildlife rehabilitation center. When a bird or other wild animal becomes sick or injured in the city, the Wild Bird Fund is their only emergency room. Last year, we admitted over 11,500 patients, mostly birds from all 5 boroughs. From our vantage point, we are uniquely positioned to see intimately the devastating collateral damage of the city's war on rats. While Flacco was flying free in New York City, consuming meal after meal of the poisoned rats that would contribute to his death, hundreds of wild native raptors across the city were meeting the same fate. Red-tailed hawks, Cooper's hawks, peregrine falcons, owls. We know this because they are brought to the clinic week after week. The signs of anticoagulant rodenticide ingestion can be disturbingly clear. Bleeding excessively from an insignificant wound, bleeding from the mouth and other orifices, blood pooling beneath the skin in the chest, abdomen, or legs from internal hemorrhaging. We administer vitamin K to counteract the effects of the anticoagulant, but by the time these birds are brought lying down in a park or on the sidewalk and brought to the clinic, it's often too late. In March alone, 2 hawks from Williamsburg and 1 from Chelsea all died before or soon after reaching the clinic. A famous pair of nesting hawks at Columbia University were both found face down on campus, dying or dead from rodenticide. One study at Cornell found that 68% of the New York State red-tailed hawks tested had anticoagulant rodenticides in their systems. In the normal course of feeding themselves and their families, these native raptors are helping us in our battle against rats. But instead of welcoming their assistance, the city is killing them. This situation is simply unsustainable. So we are in full support of 736. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Kate McKiliak.
Hello, Chair Abreu and members of the Sanitation Committee. I write in support of Intro 736 because the city's current practices of rodent mitigation are inhumane. As a cyclist, I am overexposed to the gruesome roadkill that rat poison causes. After seeing one too many disturbing rat carcasses on the street, I began to document them in late March. As of April 27th, I documented 16 dead rats on the street, 7 of which were found in just one trip from Williamsburg to Bushwick. And on Monday, I found another one in my neighborhood who sadly was still alive, even though it had been crushed. New York City should not have roadkill of any kind. Not only are rats sentient animals, which means they can feel negative and positive emotions, they are a small part of a small group of non-human animals that have been proven to have metacognition, which means they are aware of their thinking. And it means they can suffer. And at the hands of this city, they do so extremely. Rats also have empathy. There is documentation that they experience distress when another rat is in distress, and at least one study found that rats repeatedly took action to help another rat, even if it means having less treats. Lastly, I learned in National Geographic that a study published in Current Biology trained rats to pull levers to get a tasty sugar pellet. When the lever delivered a mild shock to a neighbor, several rats stopped pulling it and switched to another lever. I'd call this compassion. Something I want more from the city of New York for these emotionally intelligent animals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Loretta Mayer. Dr. Loretta Mayer?
Yes, can you hear me?
We sure can. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Clearly, I'm Dr. Loretta Mayer, and I am the co-founder of Wisdom GoodWorks and inventor of the only EPA-registered fertility control products, but the one that we propose for you is a brand new product. And I'm here to speak in support of 736 and to commit the resources of our nonprofit, Wisdom GoodWorks, to the city of New York for your contraceptive work. I've been working globally for the past 25 years in rodent fertility control because not only is it the most humane approach, but it is sustainable. You've been killing rats for hundreds of years and it's not working. I do want to say that our organization is comprised of scientists. We are not a commercial endeavor. We are a scientific endeavor, and we continue to learn every day. We have amassed over 4,000 data points that show that the particular pellets we are suggesting to you are effective in open, semi-open, and closed environments and safe for handlers and all animals. It's 100% plant-derived, and it's very attractive. So when we have been working with this, we've learned fertility control requires monitoring. We have developed a web-based monitoring system so that you can tell your success at reducing the rodent population in real time. This is absolutely vital for an integrated pest management program. We're providing that to you.
Thank you for your testimony. Dr. Steven Schuster's next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Steven Schuster?
The host is not allowing me to, there we go. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, my name is Professor Stephen Schuster. I'm curator of marine invertebrates and mollusks at Northern Arizona University, and my research concerns genetics and evolutionary biology. I'm a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and I'm chair of the Scientific Advisory Board of Wisdom Good Works, a 501c3 sharing scientific research and expertise to restore ecological balance around the world. I'm speaking in support today for Bill 736. I've written and co-authored over 30 publications stressing the importance of species interactions for maintaining species diversity and ecosystem services. I've also co-authored several additional publications on the efficacy of fertility control for managing rodent populations and the evolution of resistance to pests and pathogen treatments that involve rodenticides and other lethal measures. These contributions argue strongly against reductions in genetic variation underlying foundation species in natural ecosystems associated with agricultural and development. They also indicate that rodenticides and antibiotics impose the strongest evolutionary forces now known favoring evolved resistance, that is, resistance to rodenticide treatment. And this is an additional problem associated with rodenticides. As you use them, natural selection favors individuals who are resistant to their use. Most researchers agree that the rapid and catastrophic evolution of pest and pathogen resistance to the measures designed to control them are among the most significant problems of modern times. Our results indicate that contraceptives, such as the Good Bites pellets developed by Loretta Mayer and Cheryl Dyer of Wisdom Good Works, are more effective in controlling rodent populations and slowing the evolution of rodenticide resistance than treatments that cause sterilization or death in target species. These findings have significant implications.
Thank you for your testimony. Edita Bernkrant is next.
Thank you, Councilmember Abreu and the committee. My name is Edita Bernkrant. I'm the Executive Director for New Yorkers for Clean, Livable, and Safe Streets and a proud member of the Lights Out Coalition. NYCLAS has had a tremendous amount of positive feedback from our tens of thousands of supporters and members across the 5 boroughs for the rat contraception bill and for implementing policies to protect our wildlife, like Flacco, instead of poisoning them. The Good Bites rat infertility pellets created by Dr. Mayer are not only incredibly effective at lowering rat populations when deployed, but they are importantly 100% non-toxic to all other animals as humans, as has already been said. Look, if the rat poison worked, we wouldn't be losing the endless war on rats. We know that rodenticides are simply ineffective at controlling the rat population. What they are incredibly effective at doing, unfortunately, is poisoning birds like Flacco and other wildlife. But we have a better way now. And when you know better, you can do better. Intro 736 does better. We urge the committee to vote yes on the rat contraception bill and for the entire council to pass it into law. And we thank Councilmember Abreu for his leadership on this issue. And we really look forward to working with him and the council and making our city safe and humane for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Edita, and thank you, NYCLAS. Next is Nicole Rivard.
Hi, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm here on behalf of Friends of Animals, an international animal advocacy group founded in New York in 1957. We're also a member of the Lights Out Coalition. As you know, Flacco was not the first of New York City's celebrity owls to be poisoned by rodenticides. Not to mention, anticoagulants were detected in 84% of dead birds of prey found in New York City. That's according to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. That's why we're asking the Sanitation Committee to not only pass Intro 726, but also restrict the use of second-generation anticoagulants in New York City, as California and British Columbia have done. Similar legislation that we helped draft is literally moving through the Connecticut legislature as we speak. Fertility control alone will not stop the carnage of New York City's raptors and other wildlife. Anticoagulants work by preventing blood from clotting, and the second-gen class was created to be more toxic and last longer than the first-generation class. Rodents frequently eat more than a single dose, and the birds of prey don't have a chance against this super lethal buildup in the rodents' tissues. So they're dying from internal bleeding after consuming poisoned rodents. The good news is there's been no public health emergencies in California or British Columbia since 2021 when they restricted and banned SGARs. That's proof that we can protect wildlife without compromising public health. And more good news, you've heard about data that shows rodent birth control can be effective. Raptors are the solution. Our allies in California were able to reduce the rat population by 91% at a Seattle business district using birth control. And Bushnell Park, right here in Hartford, Connecticut, has stopped using toxic anticoagulants since it launched a successful birth control pilot program in 2021. Toxic anticoagulants mismanage the problem. They'll never solve it. Most importantly, they're killing New York
Thank you,
City's
Nicole.
birds.
Laura Roth is next. Appreciate your time.
Hi, everyone. We're going back to poop. Thank you for the time to speak today. I'm a mother of two who has been a New York City resident for almost 15 years. I'm choosing to raise my children in this city, a city where the sidewalks, parks, and playgrounds are an extension of our home. It's where we consider to be our backyards, frankly. I spend my days dodging dog waste with my stroller, which, of course, for those that haven't pushed a stroller in a while, I roll back home into the entryway of our home where this one is crawling and touching the tires. I spent my afternoon yesterday looking for a clean piece of sidewalk for my toddler to do some chalk. It's just not acceptable. Being a dog owner is a privilege, and they have a responsibility to clean up after their dogs because of that. I'm asking you to hold these dog owners accountable via increased fines after being caught leaving waste. And I'm going a step further to implore you to consider creating a program that would allow you to DNA test the dog waste and issue these fines back to the owners. This would not only create jobs in New York City, it would create a new revenue stream. And all of this would be done while cleaning up our city as they're collecting the waste to be sampled. There are models of this working throughout Europe. As a New York City resident, I consider New York City to be the best city in the world, and we just need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. Next, Nathan Semmel, a constituent of mine, actually. Nathan, you're there?
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Semmel. I'm a board member of Voters for Animal Rights. We're a grassroots organization that has worked with the City Council to pass several pieces of groundbreaking legislation to protect animals in New York City. I appear today both on behalf of VFAR and as a resident of District 7, who could not be prouder, really, of my council member, Chair Abreu, for his continued commitment to protecting animals and representing the district with integrity. For a good year, we had an amazing neighbor who lived in our neighborhood, Flacco. Flacco is not only the toast of the town, but a symbol of freedom to New Yorkers and tourists alike, who relish the opportunity to see him perched, and on trees and buildings, hooting and living his best life. But like countless birds and wildlife who help make our city and parks the wonder they are, Flacco ingested rodenticide. He got sick and he died a slow, painful death. I'm fortunate to have another wonderful neighbor in the adjacent district, the Wild Bird Fund. And in the midst of other crises that overwhelm our city's rehabbers and rescuers, this organization works around the clock treating and caring for countless wildlife who suffer the devastating consequences of rodenticide, like you've heard. But it's not limited to wildlife. Just ask any trap, neuter, return caretaker, dog walker, or overworked city vet about the burgeoning number of cats and dogs sickened and killed by rodenticide, and the crushing emotional and financial impact it has on families. From the containerization program in the district, which I've seen firsthand, to this pilot contraceptive plan, Intro 736 is consistent with the chair's think outside the box approach to reducing the rodent population. And let's be honest, all other methods, as Commissioner Tisch said, have been tried and woefully failed. VFAR is proud to support Intro 736.
Thank you, Nathan. We'll now move over to Ali Taylor from VFAR.
Hi, my name is Allie Taylor, President of Voters for Animal Rights in New York City. Thank you, Councilmember Shaun Abreu and the Committee on Sanitation, Solid Waste Management, and to Speaker Adrienne Adams for today's public hearing. And also thank you to the 29 council members who have already co-sponsored Intro 736. I also want to thank the Lights Out Coalition for doing this important work to advance this legislation. As a current homeowner in Bushwick and a former resident of Bed-Stuy, I'm very much familiar with the rat problem. If you take one step outside my stoop onto Putnam Avenue, it's obvious why we have a rat problem with a buffet of trash bags lining our streets. As a trap, neuter, release, cat rescuer, and a dog walker in Bushwick and Bed-Stuy, I've seen firsthand the devastating and fatal effects of rodenticide on cats and dogs. It's not only ineffective, but it has devastating effects on wildlife too. When birds of prey eat rodents, they ingest rodenticide and suffer slow and painful deaths that cannot be reversed, even with veterinary care. We need to find a sustainable and effective long-term solution. Containerizing trash coupled with a pilot program to test contraceptive pellets for rats and mice is an important first step to getting there. And I would love to see both trash containerization and the rodent birth control pilot program come to my neighborhood. VFAR is proud to support Intro 736, and we urge the City Council to swiftly pass the bill so that we can take the first steps to better protecting urban wildlife while controlling the mice and rat population. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Arena Hinson.
Good afternoon, esteemed members of the committee. My name is Arena Hinson, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Urban Wildlife Alliance. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to testify today. Since 2014, our organization has been dedicated to promote the welfare of wildlife in New York City through hands-on wildlife rehabilitation and advocacy, all while focusing on compassionate conservation practices. Today, I address you to express our strong support for Intro 736. Over the past decade, while taking care of wildlife patients, our team has witnessed firsthand the devastating impact of rodenticides on urban wildlife, even on non-avian species like squirrels and opossums. The recent tragic death of Flacco, the beloved owl, brought this issue into the public eye. And though this event shocked us deeply, it sadly didn't come as a surprise. Animals affected by rodenticides due to direct or secondary rodenticide poisoning are suffering excruciating and painful death every day. And yes, rats suffer horribly too. As someone who has had to witness the suffering over and over again, I can tell you that it's a death no sentient being deserves. Intro 736 offers a hopeful shift towards more humane and innovative methods of pest control. By adopting this bill, we can significantly reduce the collateral damage inflicted on non-target wildlife species. Such methods not only protect our city's wildlife, but also reflect a progressive and humane approach to rat population management. Implementing this pilot program will place New York City at the forefront of sustainable and ethical urban ecology practices. We urge the committee to approve this bill and allow our city to lead by example in adopting safe.
Thank you, Arena. Anna Sachs is next.
Oh, sorry about that. Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you for this hearing. I wanted to bring up 3 points. One is that the requirement for 1 to 9 unit buildings have to purchase bins. Large buildings do not have to pay for their bins that are going to be provided by the city. And so this seems inequitable to me. So I would ask the council to consider that either all buildings pay or no buildings pay, but not that 1 to 9 unit buildings have to pay to purchase the bins. The second is that I have tried working with DSNY to get illegal dumping in parks. Specifically, there's a park in Upper Manhattan where sometimes mattresses are dumped there, and they view it as a Parks Department issue and not a Sanitation Department issue. And so I would urge more cross-agency collaboration with illegal dumping. The third is that composting and rat mitigation, making that connection, and community composting is essential to rat mitigation. I did the Master Composter program, which is now defunded. And one of the pillars of that is rat mitigation strategies. We learn all about it. And community composting is really essential for spreading the word that by separating our food scraps into these rigid bins, we'll be depriving rats of their food source. So I urge the council to continue to push for restoring funding for community composting. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Alexandria Lafata.
Hi, my name is Alexandria Lafata. I'm the founder of Hampton's News, hospitality expert and lobbyist, and I lobbied alongside Voters for Animal Rights. With my extensive experience managing hospitality venues in New York City, I can attest to the potential benefits of rat contraception in our industry. While I can't speak for the entire industry, I represent my colleagues and myself who have been earnestly seeking humane solutions to manage rodent issues while adhering to all of the health and safety standards set forward and required by New York City. The fear that hospitality managers and venue owners face of being cited, shut down, or having their reputations tarnished due to rat problems has pushed many towards inhumane methods of control. The most commonly used methods are torturous, poisons that cause internal bleeding, snap and glue traps, and carbon monoxide suffocation in their burrows. Alarmingly, I have also witnessed residents using their dogs to train hunt and rats during nighttime outings. Societally, we tend to protect animals we find appealing, while those we consider less attractive, like rats, are subjected to brutal treatment. By controlling the rat population through birth control, we can prevent countless brutal deaths not only of rats, but of also prey animals like owls. The ripple effects of current rat control methods harm numerous other species. For example, consider the case of Flacco, who escapes human captivity only to be fatally impacted by our cruel decisions regarding other animals. Implementing birth control as a method of humane control represents a compassionate step forward, aligning our actions and our ethics while reducing unnecessary suffering across the ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lafata. I'd like to recognize people who were formerly present to testify but are no longer here. Peggy Cyphers, Elizabeth Kochlin, Pedro Suarez, Laurie Stark, Irene Muschel, Raul Rivera. Thank you, everybody, for today. This hearing is